Chapter 1: The First Customer. Inside the private room, the woman was lying on the massage table, her smooth, white back exposed. "Let's get started." The woman looked at me and said, with her head tilted, as she saw that I hadn't moved. I snapped out of it, nodded quickly, walked over, and took the scented essential oil used for massage and poured it over the woman's perfect back. The woman's back was smooth and white, with a faint layer of fluorescent light. The oil dripped onto her back with a slight coolness, causing the skin on her back to twitch slightly. I spread the oil with my hands and gently began to massage her back. "My name is Chun Changan, and I am a massage therapist at this club. Of course, I am a regular massage therapist, providing only regular massage services to customers. This is the Yuntian Club, the most luxurious entertainment club in the entire Hangzhou city. I have been working here for a full week. I used to be an operations manager at a live streaming company. A week ago, my company was swept away by the tide of internal restructuring, and I became unemployed. After leaving my job, I didn't dare tell my wife, but instead went out every day to see if I could find a new job. Unfortunately, the live streaming industry is now in a state of severe contraction, with small live streaming companies closing down one after the other. It's even harder to find a job than it is for a prostitute to find a client. That day, I passed by the Cloud Club and a woman came out and stopped me. She told me to call her sister Lon, said she was the manager of this club, and seeing that I had a good appearance, asked if I was interested in working here. I never thought that while walking down the street, a job would just fall from the sky. After a brief moment of excitement, I hesitated. The Yuntian Club is famous in Hangzhou, and it is said to be the favorite place for rich and wealthy women. As for what those rich women do in there, those in the know understand. Although I am currently unemployed, I definitely will not stoop to the point of becoming a gigolo to serve those old women. Don't worry, we only need regular massage technicians, 20,000 a month, what do you think? Sister Lon said to me with a smile. 20,000 a month. As soon as I heard the price the other party offered, I was immediately tempted. Only providing regular massages, this is undoubtedly a high-income salary. It is much better than my previous job as an operations manager. However, I don't know how to massage. Although the salary was very tempting to me, I simply did not know any professional massage techniques, and I also confessed this to Sister Lon. "It's okay, it doesn't matter if you don't know how, we will have the most professional masseurs in our club train you." Sister Lon didn't care at all. "I'll give it a try then." Although I was a bit resistant to the idea of becoming a masseur, I couldn't resist the amount of money they were offering, so I agreed after only a moment of hesitation. That night, I became a masseur at the Yuntian Club. At first, I didn't work for the first 2 days, but instead, I learned massage techniques from an experienced masseur. Massage is actually quite easy, and I had learned most of it after just 2 days. On the third day, Lon told me that I could start working. At first I was worried that Lon was tricking me into working here as a gigolo, but after 2 days I had a general understanding of the club. It is known as the Hangzhou Rich Woman's Consumption Den, and there are of course special services for those rich women, but they are not here with us. The entire second floor is for regular massages, and only the third floor is for special services. So those who work on the third floor are gigolos. On my first day I also welcomed my first guest. It was a woman wearing a big red cheongsam. The woman was very beautiful, with skin as white as the finest white porcelain, pale with a faint glow. She wore no makeup on her face, except for her lips, which were painted a glaring scarlet red. Her snow-white skin, scarlet lips, and the red robe she wore, along with the slender red high heels she was wearing, made the woman look like a temptress, one who was so beautiful that no one dared to look directly at her. The woman looked at me, her expression unreadable, but giving off a cold feeling, even making one feel a hint of inexplicable danger. The woman in front of me is like an iceberg, or like a beautiful but dangerous poisonous snake, which people dare not approach or desecrate. The woman nodded as she saw me come in, then walked into the bathroom and turned on the shower. An essential oil massage is different from other massages in that you have to wash yourself thoroughly beforehand, so that the fragrance can spread perfectly over the body. After a while, the woman came out, wrapped in a towel, her hair piled high on her head, revealing her slender neck. A beautiful woman coming out of the bath is a scene so beautiful that it is beyond words. The woman in front of me looks a bit vague, and I'm talking about her age. In terms of appearance, the age a woman gives off is very vague. The green feeling of a girl in her 20s and the maturity of a young woman in her 30s seem to be reflected in her. What a devilish and superb woman. The woman came to the massage table, got down on all fours, and spread the bath towel apart to reveal her back. Her almost perfect figure revealed the sensuality and charm of a woman, but there was also a touch of unearthly coldness about her. I looked at the woman, stunned for several seconds before I came back to my senses. "Let's get started," the woman said lightly. I walked over, poured some essential oil onto her back, and began to massage. She was my first client, so I massaged very carefully, for fear that if I was too heavy-handed, she would feel uncomfortable. Fortunately, the woman never expressed dissatisfaction during the massage. Towards the end, she even closed her eyes and breathed softly, falling asleep. I stopped moving, pulled the quilt over the woman, sat on the side, and carefully observed the woman's profile. She was already incredibly beautiful, and just looking at her profile added a few more mysterious and beautiful points. It was that kind of feeling of half-covered beauty, so beautiful that it makes your heart flutter. Just what is this woman's background, and how can she be so beautiful? Although I was deeply moved by the woman's beauty, I dared not think any bad thoughts in my heart, nor did I dare to have any frivolous thoughts. A woman like this is destined to come from a good family. She might be a canary kept by some big shot. If I touch her, I won't just lose my job, I'm afraid I won't even know how I'll die. The woman slept quietly for about half an hour or so, her eyelashes twitched slightly, and she opened her eyes. "You were asleep just now," I said with a smile as I watched her wake up. The woman sat up with a bath towel in her arms and nodded. "You have a good massage technique, I'll order you every day in the future," the woman said. "I would love to massage such a beautiful woman every day, of course," I said to her. "Okay, I'm happy to serve you." I thought the woman was just saying it casually, but I didn't expect that from that day on. She really became my daily customer, and the only customer. Chapter 2, Caught in the Act. Since that day, the woman really came to the club every day, and every time she ordered my services. A week passed, and apart from her, I didn't receive any other clients at all. I was a little worried. After all, as a masseur here, other colleagues have to work several shifts a day, and I only have one client a day, which is really a bit hard to justify. With a monthly salary of $20,000, I don't want to lose this job. But for some reason, every day I simply couldn't get any other clients, just that one woman. I went to ask Sister Lan what was going on. She smiled at me and said not to worry, that the woman was a VIP of the club, and that I just had to serve her well, even if I didn't get any other bookings. With Sister Lan's assurance, I was finally relieved. It seems that the woman really came from a wealthy family, which is why the club values her so highly. From that day on, she was the only client I had, and I became the most idle masseur in the entire club. At around 6 p.m. that day, I didn't wait for the woman, so I asked for a leave from Sister Lan, packed up and went off work, and then went to a flower shop and bought a bouquet of flowers. The reason I asked for a leave was because today was the anniversary of my marriage to my wife, Gu Miao. We had just been married for a year. When we went out today, I told her that I had to work overtime tonight and might not be back, just to give her a surprise. In fact, I have booked a private room at a hotel near home, planning to spend our first wedding anniversary with her. Gu Miao and I were college classmates, and we fell in love for 3 years in college, and got together after graduation. At the beginning, there were many people pursuing Gu Miao, but in the end she chose me. We have been married for a year, and although we don't earn much money, we are very happy. I believe that as long as I work hard, I can definitely give her a happy future. I took the flowers to the door, took out the key and opened the door. As soon as I entered the door, I saw a pair of men's leather shoes on the floor. Do we have a guest? I didn't think much of it and went in, changing my shoes. The bedroom door was half open, and inside came the sound of breathless moans, both female and male, interspersed with the sound of the bed banging against the wall. Listening to the sounds inside, I felt like I'd been struck by lightning, and I felt my blood freeze instantly. I dropped the flowers in my hand and rushed to the bedroom door. The two people on the bed were so engrossed that they didn't even notice me at the door, and they were still moving so intensely. I just watched them perform their passionate show, and the moans coming from Gu Miao's mouth were like thunderbolts splitting above my head. I saw clearly that the man, whom I had met before, was the manager of Gu Miao's company, surnamed Lu, and Gu Miao had told me more than once that the manager took good care of her and was a good person. I never in a million years would have thought that they would actually take care of each other in bed. "Fuck you!" I yelled. The couple on the bed were scared out of their wits by my shout. Luan jumped up in bed, and Gu Miao screamed and pulled the quilt back. I trembled with rage, charged at Luan, and kicked him in the groin. Luan let out a scream, bent over and collapsed, like a boiled shrimp. "I'll kill you." I picked up the vase on the bedside table and was about to smash it over Luan's head. "No!" Gu Miao screamed, rushed over and hugged me tightly. Bitch, let go of me. I yelled at Gu Miao. Go, you go. Gu Miao yelled at Luan. Luan came back to his senses and dared not stay there any longer. He grabbed his clothes and rushed out naked. I was so angry that I flung Gu Miao away and was about to rush out. Gu Miao crashed into the bedside table and yelled at me, Chen Chang'an, do you think chasing after him will change anything? You can't really kill him. I turned around and looked at Gu Miao. She was sitting naked on the bedside table, no longer in a panic as before, but instead with an inexplicable calmness. The wedding photo that had originally been placed on the bedside table had now fallen to the ground, with her bare feet stepping on it. In the photo, my Gu Miao was kissing with a face full of happiness. But now, this photo is nothing but a great irony to me. Why did you do this? I yelled at Gu Miao angrily. We have been in love for 5 years, married for 1 year, for a total of 6 years, and I have always regarded him as my one and only. I never imagined that she would betray me. But today, I actually witnessed her in bed with another man, and it was also our wedding anniversary. This is unbearable for me. I'm sorry, Chen Chang'an, it's my fault, but since you found out, let's get a divorce, said Gu Miao indifferently. Divorce? Do you think I can still live with you after what you've done? I should be the one to say divorce. Okay, since you agree, let's meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow morning. Gu Miao didn't hesitate for a second and nodded directly. I looked at Gu Miao, the woman I once loved the most, but at this moment she made me sick, so sick I wanted to vomit. I walked up to her and slapped her hard in the face. Since we started dating, I had never said a harsh word to her, let alone hit her. This was the first time. I just no longer felt the slightest bit of compassion. All I felt was the exhilaration of having let off some steam. You bitch. I yelled angrily. I'm a bitch, yes, I'm a bitch, so what? I can only live in this kind of rented house with you, but when I'm with Luan, he promises to buy me a house in Hangzhou. What can you give me? Who are you to hit me? Gu Miao covered her face and said to me with full of mockery. Fine, I wish you two adulterers a long life together. After I finished speaking, I turned around directly and left this home. Today's events made me feel like my world had completely collapsed, and Gu Miao's words made me have no more attachment to her at all. Our lives have also come to a complete end. I walked on the road, like a zombie, aimlessly. Unconsciously, I arrived at the Yuntian Club. I have nowhere else to go now, and there is a special restroom for us here, so I can only spend the night here today. I walked dazedly to the second floor and tried to go to the restroom, but a woman came towards me. The woman was wearing a red cheongsam, and the split revealed her white thighs, which were glaring. It was my only customer. As I walked past her, I looked up and gave her a smile, but I knew that smile should be even uglier than crying. What's wrong with you? The woman asked, stopping in her tracks. Although she was my customer, we were otherwise just strangers, and naturally I wasn't going to tell her my business. Nothing, I said, shaking my head and speaking weakly. You were just gone, and I've been waiting for a long time. Now that you're here, give me a massage. The woman said, turning and walking towards me. Chapter 3, A Chance Encounter in a Bar. I looked at the woman and lost my train of thought for a few seconds. My mind was in a mess right now, and I really didn't want to serve her. But after all, she was my regular customer, and she was also my only customer, and I couldn't refuse her request. Okay, then go to the room and wait for me for a while, I said to her with a forced smile. The woman nodded and walked straight ahead. I'm in room 305, she said as she walked. I went to the dressing room, changed into my work clothes, grabbed the massage oil, and went to room 305. Inside the room, the woman had already finished her shower, and was wearing only a towel as she lay on the massage table. I untied the towel and exposed her back. Although she was incredibly beautiful, I was in no mood at the moment, so I just squeezed the essential oil onto her back and began the massage. Something seems to have happened to you today, the woman asked me softly. Although I had been massaging her for a week, every time she came, she would just lie there, not saying much, just taking a shallow nap. We hardly ever had any communication. Yes, something happened at home. I smiled wryly and told her. Well, can you tell me what it is? The woman's voice was still flat. I was silent for a moment, not knowing what to say. I'm just a little curious, but you don't have to tell me if you don't want to, the woman said again. I sighed. Since I had already decided to divorce Gu Miao, there was no harm in telling someone about it. It was just that I was a man, and I felt a little ashamed to be cuckolded. But apart from the daily massages, she and I were not really close, so since she wanted to hear it, there was no harm in telling her. The main thing was that I was feeling extremely pent up inside, and I wanted someone to talk to. It's my wife. My wife cheated on me, and I caught her in the act. I sighed and said to her, "That's a sad story." The woman said lightly. We then started chatting. She was a very good listener, not saying much, but mostly just listening quietly to what I had to say. At first I was a little embarrassed, but as the conversation went on, I told her almost everything that had happened to me over the past few years. We fell in love in college, our life after marriage, and how I lost my job and came here to work as a masseur without telling her, until the showdown after the affair was discovered today. After listening to me, the woman said calmly, "In that case, it proves that you two are not suitable for each other, and separation is a good choice for you." I gave a bitter smile. Of course I understood what she meant. But I was unwilling to accept it. In the past few years, I have only had Gu Miao in my heart, and I would rather do anything for our relationship, even work as a masseur here. But in the end, this is the result. There is nothing to be unhappy about. She was after material things, and you couldn't satisfy her, so parting is the best choice for both of you. The woman said, sitting up with a towel around her waist. I looked at her exposed shoulder for a moment, slightly lost in thought. "Okay, that's it for today. I think you need a drink even more now," the woman said to me. I nodded and got up to leave. The woman always gave me the impression of being cold, and of course someone like that is not good at comforting others. I didn't want to get any comfort from her, but just to pour out my dissatisfaction, so that my repressed emotions could be relieved a little. I walked back to the lounge, changed into my own clothes, and felt that the woman was right. I really needed a drink now. I left the club. It was dark outside, and there were thousands of lights along the road, but now my own soul had no place to return to. I walked along the street, heading towards the bar I remembered. Apart from the 2 times I went with a few close friends when I was at university, I had never been here once since I got married. Because Gu Miao said that the people who came here were not decent people, she didn't like me coming to this kind of place. I had always listened to her. But now I think about it, I feel like a fool. Gu Miao has slept with other men, but I'm too afraid to even go into a bar. I arrived at the bar and pushed open the door. There were quite a few people inside. I wondered if there were any other losers like me. I ordered a glass of vodka. I needed this strong drink to stimulate me right now. I gulped down half the glass in one go. The strong alcohol almost made me vomit. The spicy feeling went straight from my mouth to my throat. That burning sensation made my lost soul seem to return to my body. Several sexy, hot women in sexy clothes set their eyes on me, and one after another they came over, sat down next to me, flirted with me, and asked if I could buy them a drink. They were all young and pretty, and the dim lighting in the bar gave off a somewhat amorous atmosphere. I rejected them all, not because I didn't have the desire, but simply because at the moment I had no such thoughts at all. I just wanted to drink, and get drunk. I took a sip of the drink and took out a cigarette to light it. Sometimes it's like this, when you really want to get drunk, it's hard to get drunk. After a glass of wine, I didn't feel even a little drunk, but instead felt more and more sober. I looked at the door, and at this moment the bar door was pushed open and a woman walked in. The woman looked to be about 25 or 26 years old, with a tall and well-proportioned figure, very different from the scantily dressed women in the bar. She was wearing a white short skirt, showing off a pair of long, slender, and round legs. When she opened the door, the night wind blew her long hair, which was scattered over her shoulders, and the corners of her skirt. The flying skirt corners gave the woman a pure feeling that was out of place with the surroundings. She was very beautiful, with delicate features, and although she was only wearing light makeup, she gave a stunning impression at first glance. She seemed to be somewhat out of place in this bar. The woman who had suddenly appeared attracted my attention. I kept staring at her, watching her walk inside and then walk towards me. It seemed that she felt my gaze, and she glanced at me, frowning slightly in displeasure. I smiled, but didn't take my eyes off her. In a place like this, when a beautiful woman appears, isn't she there to be admired? "What are you looking at, you pervert?" The woman walked up to me, her eyebrows slightly furrowed, her eyes full of displeasure. "Do you want to have a drink together?" I raised my glass at her. The woman snorted, ignored me, and walked towards the back with her long legs. She's still a feisty beauty. I smiled and continued drinking. "Hey, beautiful, have a drink with us." Just then, a rascal's voice sounded behind me, followed by the laughter of a few men. Chapter 4, is it AB or AC? I turned my head to look, and the woman I had just seen was being blocked by a scruffy guy. The guy looked like a clear-cut thug, and his eyes kept scanning the long legs under the woman's skirt. "What are you looking at, you dirty rascal?" the woman yelled angrily. I was a bit speechless, because the words were exactly the same as the one she had just yelled at me. It was just that the thug on the other side obviously wasn't as easygoing as me, and he was staring at the woman with a lecherous smile on his face. "Sister, don't pretend. Aren't we all here looking for excitement? Come home with me, and I'll give you the excitement you want." The guy said this and then tried to take the woman's hand. The woman couldn't believe he actually dared to do it, and she took a few steps back in shock. But the guy wasn't going to give up, and he forced his way towards her. "What the hell are you doing?" I stood up and pulled the woman behind me. If this had happened in the past, I would have just ignored it. But today, I was filled with anger, and coupled with the alcohol, I had a strong urge to fight someone. Besides, the punk on the other side was as skinny as a chicken, and I was confident that I could easily take him. The punk looked me up and down, with a face of disdain. "Who the hell are you? Mind your own business, or you'll be sorry. She is my girlfriend. If you don't get lost, I'll make sure you won't be able to walk away." I looked at the punk, not losing any ground. I was now hoping that he would make a move, so that I could have a good fight with him. "She is your girlfriend?" The punk obviously didn't believe it. "What, you have a problem with that?" I said, while turning around and taking the woman's hand. The woman's hand slightly flinched, but she didn't refuse to be taken by me. Her fingers were long and soft, and I felt an indescribable sense of pleasure holding them in my hands. "Now, get lost." I held the woman's hand and stared at the punk. This guy was also a coward, and was overwhelmed by my imposing presence. "You're a real piece of work, we'll see about this." He left the bar in a hurry, leaving a threatening remark behind, as if he was really afraid that I would do something. "This is so boring," I shook my head. I didn't expect this guy to admit defeat so quickly. It made me feel really uninteresting. I was originally thinking about having a fight to let off some steam. "Can you let go?" Just as I was in a daze, the woman spoke. I then reacted, realizing that I was still holding her hand. I smiled at her and quickly let go. The warmth of her hand remained in my hand, so I couldn't help but hold it up to my nose and sniffed it, still smelling sweet. The woman looked at me, her brows slightly furrowed. "You dirty rascal. Hey, I just saved you, and you're already turning your back on me." I sat down again, feeling a little helpless. The woman snorted, but instead of leaving, she sat directly across from me, crossing her long legs and staring at me in a daze. "What's this?" I asked her. "Are you alone?" the woman asked. I nodded. "That's just it, I'm also alone, let's drink together," the woman said again. I would be crazy to refuse a drink with such a beautiful woman, so I nodded. The woman called the waiter and ordered 2 bottles of wine. She poured herself a glass, took a sip, and then looked at me. "Why are you here alone? Did you just get out of a relationship?" "It's a little worse than that. I'm getting a divorce tomorrow." I gave a wry smile. The woman heard my words and paused for a moment, her face showing a hint of apology. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it." "It's okay, it's all over anyway." I waved my hand at her to show that I didn't mind. "Actually, I'm in a similar situation to you, I just broke up with someone," the woman said, and drained the glass of wine in one go. So, 2 disillusioned people drank together. Wine is a good medicine for bringing people closer together. After a few glasses, we soon opened up and talked about a lot of things. I learned her name, Mushawan. A very nice name. She had been dumped by her boyfriend of more than a year, who had hooked up with her best friend. I narrowed my eyes and looked Mushawan up and down. "Hey, what are you doing? That really looks like a pervert." Mushawan pretended to be shocked and tugged at the hem of her skirt. "Don't get me wrong, I just think your ex-boyfriend has a problem with his eyes. He had such a beautiful girlfriend and still found someone else. He can't be blind, can he?" My words made Mushawan burst out laughing, and the wine she had just drunk in her mouth sprayed out, spilling onto her clothes. I subconsciously reached for a tissue and started wiping it off. But after just 2 wipes, the wonderful, elastic feel of it brought me back to my senses. Damn, I really have drunk too much, what am I doing? I stopped and looked at Mushawan, who was also looking at me, her mouth slightly open, clearly shocked by my actions. Don't get me wrong, I didn't do it on purpose. I quickly withdrew my hand and explained to her. Humph, you rascal, I was right about you. Mu Xiaowan's cute nose wrinkled a little. Although she was angry, it added a touch of playfulness to her beauty. I really didn't mean to. I continued to explain, but the explanation just sounded a bit powerless no matter how you heard it. Humph, forget it, on the basis of the trouble you just solved for me, I'll forgive you. Mu Xiaowan gave me a glare. I smiled and asked her, how old are you? Mu Xiaowan wiped the wine from her chest while she said, 26. I stared at her movements and subconsciously said, no, I think it should be 36. Do I look that old? Mu Xiaowan froze for a moment, stopped her movements, and looked at me with some confusion. It should be 36B, I added. Asshole, it's C. Mu Xiaowan's face was full of anger, and she looked as if she wanted to eat me up. No wonder. I nodded. No wonder what? Mu Xiaowan asked. No wonder it felt so good. I smiled and even lifted my hand to gesture. Normally, I would never flirt with a girl like this. But today I had been drinking and my head wasn't quite clear, so it was hard to control my emotions. Plus, I was facing a beautiful woman like Mu Xiaowan, and it was hard for any man to control himself. Mu Xiaowan's face flushed with a hint of shyness, looking exceptionally moving. You scoundrel, dare to say anything else, I'll scream for help if you do. Mu Xiaowan said angrily to me. Okay, I won't say anything else, it's all your fault for being so beautiful, it's hard to resist. I quickly said. Humph, although you are a scoundrel, you still have a good sense of aesthetics. A hint of a smile appeared at the corner of Mu Xiaowan's mouth. Chapter 5, Dropping Her Off at the Hotel. Mu Xiaowan and I chatted on and off. We were two complete strangers, but as if we had an endless supply of things to say, we were both lost and had so much to say. At this time, we became each other's confidants. Before we knew it, the 2 bottles of wine she had brought were already empty. The more I drank, the more sober I felt, while Mu Xiaowan across from me was clearly drunk. Mu Xiaowan was about to call the bartender over, so I quickly stopped her. She was already quite drunk, and I was afraid something would happen if she continued drinking. That's enough, don't drink anymore. I have things to do tomorrow, I said. Oh, I forgot, you're getting divorced tomorrow. I'll meet you at the Civil Affairs office tomorrow morning, Mu Xiaowan said to me, her face flushed with drunkenness. What are you going to do? I asked. I'll wait for you in front of the Civil Affairs office. After you've finished getting divorced, I'll go up there and say I'm your girlfriend, and let you punch your ex-wife in the face really hard. Wouldn't that be great? Mu Xiaowan said with a smile. I had to admit that, in terms of appearance and temperament, Mu Xiaowan was far superior to Gu Miao, and she was also younger than Gu Miao. If she pretended to be my girlfriend and went to slap Gu Miao in the face, it would be very satisfying. This kind of scene is very common in modern novels, and it is a classic scene for slapping someone in the face. But I didn't take her words seriously. We didn't have any relationship, and today was only the first time we met. We just sat together and had a drink. It was unrealistic to expect her to help me play the slap scene, and besides, I didn't think it made any sense. The most important thing was that she was drunk now, and I didn't think she would remember what she said today until tomorrow. I'll go find you. I'll definitely go find you at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. Mu Xiaowan ran out of breath as she spoke, and she collapsed directly onto the table, falling asleep. Hey, wake up, you can't do this. Seeing her pass out like that, I was at a loss for words. Leaving her here was out of the question, but taking her home was out of the question too, as I had no idea where she lived. I called out to her again, but Mu Xiaowan didn't respond at all, slumped over the table. It was already 2 a.m., and I was at my wit's end. I had no choice but to support her and go to the front desk to settle the bill. When we walked out of the bar, Mu Xiaowan was still unconscious and hanging onto me. I really had no choice but to put one of her hands on my shoulder and one around her waist, and wait for a taxi by the roadside. I planned to take her to a hotel. My hand was on Mu Xiaowan's waist, feeling the fullness of her skin, and my heart couldn't help but flutter slightly. After a while, the taxi arrived, and I helped Mu Xiaowan sit in the back seat, saying the name of the nearest hotel. The driver started the car, kept looking at us in the rearview mirror, and no matter how I looked at it, his smile was a bit lewd. I knew what he meant, but in this situation, there was no way I could explain. What's more, Mu Xiaowan was a little drunk and not at all honest, hugging me and rubbing against me. Brother, you're in for a treat today. The driver said with envy. What did you say? I froze for a moment. I've picked up a lot of bodies, but this is the first time I've seen such an exceptional woman. You're so lucky, brother. I looked at the driver and froze for a moment. I knew he had misunderstood me. I was about to refute him when Mu Xiaowan put her arm around my neck and whispered in my ear, "It wasn't him who picked me up, it was me who picked him up." As soon as she said this, the driver and I froze. The driver gave a meaningful smile. I thought Mu Xiaowan had woken up, so I called out to her, but she was leaning on my shoulder and fell asleep again. The car soon arrived at the hotel, and I helped Mu Xiaowan out. The driver rolled down the window and shouted at me, "Brother, enjoy yourself tonight." "You've got it all wrong, it's not what you think," I said with a bitter smile. "I understand, I remember to take precautions." After the driver said that, he hit the gas and sped off. What the hell is going on? I shook my head with a bitter smile and helped Mu Xiaowan into the hotel. With a face full of ambiguous expressions at the hotel reception, I booked a room with a queen-size bed, ready to put Mu Xiaowan in and come out myself. When I arrived at the room, I put Mu Xiaowan on the bed, pulled the quilt over her, and her feet were exposed outside the quilt, wearing a pair of slender pink high heels. I walked over to her, hesitated for a moment, and then knelt down to help her take off her shoes. It was a bit cold at night, and I was afraid she would catch a cold like this. I took her ankle in my hands. The drunk Mu Xiaowan seemed to sense this and slightly shrunk her foot. I quickly let go of her hand. I thought she had woken up, and it would be bad if she misunderstood. However, Mu Xiaowan just rolled over and continued to sleep. I smiled bitterly, squatted down again, and helped her take off both high heels. She wasn't wearing socks, and after taking off her shoes, a pair of snow-white little feet appeared in front of me. It is said that beauty is in the feet, and I can now see why the ancients pursued the 3-inch golden lotus feet. Her feet were beautifully shaped, slightly thin and even. Under the hotel lights, they looked like the finest Hatian jade, with a faint layer of fluorescent light, mesmerizing. I held her feet for a moment, shook my head to get rid of the bad thoughts in my head, and then put her feet into the quilt. After doing all this, I let out a sigh of relief, stood up, and looked at her again. But just this one glance startled me. Mu Xiaowan was lying on her side, her cheeks flushed, staring straight at me. "You. Don't get me wrong, I'm just afraid you'll catch a cold," I hurriedly explained to her. Her face was flushed with drunkenness, as if she had applied a light layer of rouge, giving her an unknown charm at this moment. "I'm so thirsty, pour me a glass of water to drink," Mu Xiaowan said to me in a hazy drunkenness. I quickly poured her a glass of water and handed it over. Mu Xiaowan sat up in bed and drank the water in large gulps, tilting her neck back. Her long, white neck was like a work of art, especially as the water dripped from the corner of her mouth and slid down her neck, creating a striking beauty that made my heart palpitate involuntarily. Mu Xiaowan is a beautiful woman and one who easily arouses the desire of others. However, she doesn't smell like a prostitute, and is the kind of woman who arouses desire without being vulgar. And it is often this kind of woman who is most likely to make a man addicted and unable to extricate himself. I kept cursing her ex-boyfriend in my heart. What kind of taste does that guy have that he would actually initiate a breakup with such a beautiful girlfriend? Mu Xiaowan was indeed thirsty and drank the glass of water in one gulp. Then she put down the glass and looked at me quietly. The next moment, she lifted the quilt, stood on the floor with her long legs, and walked towards me step by step with a faint smile on her face. I looked at her and felt only a dry mouth and a pounding heart. Chapter 6. Are you really not capable? I watched her walk towards me, my heart pounding wildly. What was she going to do? Alcohol can confuse people. Could it be that she wanted to do something to me? She is such a beautiful woman, I have no reason to refuse, but I really don't have the heart to do so right now. Are you okay? Then I'll go back first. I stood up a little panicked and walked towards the door. I just didn't know what to do, and I forgot to open the door in my head, so I just ran my head straight into the door. With a bang, I felt a pain in my head. The pain in my head was nothing, but the sense of shame made me a little overwhelmed for a while. Behind me, I heard Mu Xiaowan's loud laughter. I looked back and saw that she was bent over with laughter, even tears coming out of her eyes. Why, am I that scary? Mu Xiaowan said to me while laughing. I was just distracted by other things, I explained weakly. Oh, what were you thinking about? Were you thinking about me? Mu Xiaowan straightened up, tousled her hair, and looked charming. I felt my mouth go dry again, and I opened my mouth but didn't know what to say. Mu Shaowan is a very beautiful woman, and anyone who isn't blind can see that. Moreover, she has a kind of pure temperament, full of youthful vitality. And now she is drunk, her cheeks are slightly flushed, but this adds a special charm that is fatal to any man. Why aren't you saying anything? Are you scared, or are you impotent? Mu Shaowan still said to me in a charming manner. The last thing a man can accept is to be called timid, and even less acceptable is for a woman to say that he is not capable. Her words immediately emboldened me a little. She is a woman, and she is still taking the initiative. I am a man, so what am I afraid of? Who says I am afraid? You haven't tried it, so how do you know I can't do it? Why don't you try it? I said to her. Okay, then you do it. Mu Shaowan lifted her leg, stepped on the sofa, and gave me a finger-crossing signal, as if her eyes were hooked. Just go over there, and don't regret it. I made up my mind, and walked towards her. Mu Shaowan kept one foot on the sofa, smiling at me, not moving a muscle. She looked like a beautiful flower, blooming and waiting to be picked. I walked up to her and said, I'm here, what do you want? Mu Shaowan leaned her head next to my ear, her body almost pressed against mine. You can do whatever you want. Her breath smelled like orchid, and the exhale breath hit my ear, making my whole body feel numb. My sweaty palms were nervous. Such a beautiful woman was in front of you, at your disposal, and if I could still hold back, then I would not be a man. I took a deep breath, extended my hands, and was about to embrace her. Mu Shaowan looked at me and frowned slightly. I felt that something was wrong, but before I could react, Mu Shaowan opened her mouth and vomited directly, covering me in vomit. This made me lose all thoughts, and I quickly helped her to the bathroom. In the bathroom, Mu Shaowan vomited until she finally collapsed in front of the toilet. I looked at the mess in the bathroom and on my own body, helplessly smiled bitterly, and thought to myself, what the hell is going on? I took off my jacket and helped Mu Shaowan up. This time she really passed out. I gave her a quick face wash, then dragged her to the bed, took a shower myself, and cleaned up the bathroom. After all that, I went back to the room, and Mu Shaowan was already asleep in bed, her two long white legs exposed. I sighed, not having any thoughts in my mind right now. I pulled the quilt over her and covered her up, then lay down on the sofa. I was going to leave, but then I thought that I didn't even have a home right now, and the lounge at the club was not as good as this place, so I might as well just stay here for the night. Besides, Mu Shaowan was so drunk, who knew if she would get up and cause trouble again? After drinking in the previous commotion, I felt exhausted, and I fell asleep not long after lying down. I felt very tired and confused. My chest felt like it was being crushed by a mountain. The pressure became stronger and stronger, making it difficult for me to breathe. I yelled out in my sleep and woke up abruptly. When I opened my eyes, I felt something was wrong. There was someone lying on top of me. The person was lying on top of me, their head buried in my chest, their thighs spread apart and pressed against my legs, and their arms tightly wrapped around my waist. It was Mu Shaowan. She had somehow managed to get on top of me and was now lying on me like an octopus. Feeling her body heat, my heart began to race. Mu Shaowan also woke up at this moment, looked up at me with drunken, dazed eyes and a confused expression. Ah! A moment later, Mu Shaowan let out a scream that almost pierced my eardrums and jumped up and down on top of me. You rascal, what did you do to me last night? Mu Shaowan put her arms around her chest and asked me nervously and pitifully. I was shocked by her scream and my ears were buzzing. It took me a while to recover. The decibels of a woman's high pitch are really terrifying. Seeing Mu Shaowan's expression of being bullied, I was a little helpless. I rubbed my temples and sat up. Sister, you were unconscious yesterday, and I didn't know where your home was, so I had to take you to the hotel, I said to her helplessly. I was drunk, and you just picked up the body and took me to a hotel, didn't you? You're shameless. Mu Shaowan kept checking her body. Hey, don't say anything, okay? I didn't do anything last night. I explained to her helplessly. You really didn't do anything? Mu Shaowan's expression relaxed a little, but she was still a little suspicious. Big sister, if I did something to you, couldn't you feel it? Besides, you didn't even take your clothes off, what could I do? I shook my head. Mu Shaowan touched herself again and really didn't notice anything unusual. Then how did I sleep on top of you? Mu Shaowan pointed at the sofa. This time I was even more wronged, and I said helplessly to her, you slept on the bed last night, and I slept on the sofa. Who knows how you got on top of me? Mu Xiaowan surveyed me for a few moments, and a sly look flashed in her eyes. You mean, last night I was so drunk I passed out and you took me back to the hotel, and then I slept on top of you all night? Mu Xiaowan asked. Yes, that's exactly what happened. I nodded in reply. So, you didn't do anything to me at all? Could it be that you really can't do it? Mu Xiaowan pretended to be surprised and covered her mouth. Chapter 7. A woman as beautiful as a demon. After being provoked by Mu Xiaowan one after the other, even I, a clay figure, have some anger. I walked directly towards him. Can't we just try and you'll know? Seeing that I was going to get serious, Mu Xiaowan was scared and kept backing up, sitting down on the bed with a thud. I'm telling you, don't mess around, or I'll sue you for indecent assault. Mu Xiaowan was slightly panicked. I deliberately scared her. Compared to going to jail, I felt that being told no by you hurt more. Besides, you are so pretty, and I think it's worth going to jail for you. I laughed lewdly while approaching her, like a flower thief. This time, Mu Xiaowan was really scared, and she picked up the pillow and held it against her chest. I told you not to mess around. If you dare to do anything to me, I really won't let you go. It's too late to be scared now. I gradually closed in. Mu Xiaowan turned her head and glanced out the window. Hey, didn't you say you were going to get a divorce today? Are you having second thoughts? Mu Xiaowan's words were like a bucket of cold water, poured over my head, and I no longer had the heart to mess around with her. I'm going to get a divorce today. I paid no more attention to Mu Xiaowan, but turned around and took the jacket that had been washed. I'm leaving. Don't drink alone in the future, or you might not meet up with me again. After I finished speaking, I walked straight out the door. I didn't ask Mu Xiaowan for any contact information. Last night, we only happened to bump into each other occasionally, and although we spent the night together after she got drunk, nothing happened between us. After all is said and done, we are complete strangers, and right now I don't have the heart to hope for anything more intimate with her. Right now, I just want to completely resolve our marriage with that bitch Gu Miao. I walked directly out of the hotel and took a taxi to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Gu Miao was already waiting for me at the door, holding the household register and our marriage certificate. When she saw me, she didn't say a word and turned to go inside. I followed behind her and went through the formalities at the divorce registration office, replacing the original marriage certificate with a divorce certificate. From this moment on, Gu Miao and I were completely no longer related. I felt some emotion in my heart the moment I got the divorce certificate. After all, this was my first marriage, and Gu Miao was the first woman I had ever loved. But now, this woman has left me with no attachment at all, and even seeing her makes me feel sick. Because no matter what, I will never forget the moment I caught her in bed with another man. At that moment, all the good things she had in my heart were broken. Chen Chang'an, here is 10,000 yuan, take it. In front of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Gu Miao took a wad of money out of her bag and handed it to me. What do you mean, breakup fee? If I have to pay, I'll pay you, but I don't want your dirty money. I said coldly. Gu Miao's mouth curled up, revealing a mocking smile. Chen Chang'an, what are you pretending? Don't you think I don't know you've lost your job? I looked at Gu Miao, a little surprised. I didn't think she would know that I was unemployed. You don't have much money now, after all, you are also considered my ex-husband. If you end up on the streets, it's my reputation that will be lost. Take this money. Gu Miao wore a condescending look. Looking at her eyes, an inexplicable anger welled up in my heart. In order not to worry her, I didn't even dare to tell her that I had lost my job, but instead became a masseuse. But what I have done has now become an excuse for her to mock me. At that moment, the anger in my heart seemed ready to explode. Take your stinking money and get out. I couldn't help it, I told her to go to hell. Chen Chang'an, what are you pretending? You think I don't know that you've fallen to the point of being a masseur? You've fallen to this state, what's the point of pretending? You don't want me, I can pack it up, don't regret it. What's wrong with me being a masseur? I make money on my own merits, my money comes clean, unlike you, who makes money by sleeping with men. My words made Gu Miao's face turn a little pale. Moreover, you are in no position to mock me. I became a masseuse originally for our family and our marriage. I have a clear conscience, but you are a betrayer. Gu Miao was speechless by my retort and angrily put the money back in her bag. Fine, Chen Chang'an, you can act all tough. You think I don't know what the Yuntian Club is? Whether you are a masseuse or a gigolo there, who knows? Who do you think is the gigolo? Gu Miao's words made me unable to hold back anymore, and I forced my way towards her. What are you? What are you doing? Gu Miao was scared and hurriedly backed away. At this point, I was so angry that I really wanted to slap her in the face. Just then, a car stopped in front of us, a black BMW 5 Series. The car stopped and the door opened, and a man got out of the car, the object of Gu Miao's infidelity, her company manager Luan. Gu Miao, are you done? Why did it take so long? Luan didn't even look at me, and walked up to Gu Miao. Looking at the adulterous couple in front of me, I felt an urge to kill them, but in the end, reason prevailed and I controlled my impulses. Without saying another word, I turned around and left. They've both fallen to being gigolos, what's the point in being proud? They can really put on an act. Behind me, I heard Gu Miao's mocking voice. Yes, how can someone like that be with you? Gu Miao, you made the right choice. Luan followed up. At this point, my anger was no longer tolerable. I believed that any man who was so humiliated by his wife and her lover would be unable to bear it. Fuck you. I turned back and stared at Luan. Now there was only one thought in my head, and that was to beat the shit out of this son of a bitch. Just as I was about to do so, a crisp brake sound rang out, and then a black, powerful off-road vehicle with a strong sense of oppression stopped in front of us. Mercedes-Maybach G650, the world's top off-road vehicle, priced at over $5 million. The body of the car, like that of a fierce beast, made Luan's BMW 5 Series next to it look like a meat kitten. The door opened and a long, snow-white leg stepped out of the car, followed by a flash of bright red. Stepping out of the car was a woman wearing a big red cheongsam with a high slit. Not only was she wearing a big red cheongsam, but the high-heeled boots on her feet were also red, and even her lips were painted a bright red. The woman's skin was as white as snow, and the thighs exposed outside the cheongsam were even more dazzlingly white. Paired with the eye-catching red, it wasn't at all tacky, but instead gave her a kind of enchanting beauty. Are you done with the paperwork? If you are, follow me. Don't waste any more time talking to this kind of person. The woman, wearing high heels, came up to me with a clattering sound. She glanced at Gu Miao and Luan, frowned slightly, and did not hide her disgust at all. Chapter 8, just who is she? The appearance of the woman left both Gu Miao and Luan dumbfounded. Not only were they dumbfounded, but I was completely dumbfounded too, having no idea what was going on. But the woman who appeared was someone I knew. It was the woman who ordered a massage from me every day. In the past, whenever I saw her, she was inside the club, and most of the club was dimly lit, so it wasn't a very real sensory experience. But now, the woman was standing in the sunlight, her skin so white it was blinding, coupled with the bright red lips, giving a person a thrilling feeling of beauty. That kind of beauty is even too much to bear. Especially the kind of temperament exuded by the woman, noble and cold, with an inexplicable sense of danger, making her whole person look like a colorful, beautiful but dangerous poisonous snake. What are you doing? Follow me. The woman said to me. Hearing her words, I subconsciously lifted my foot and walked towards her. Good, Chen Chang'an, you shameless thing, and you still accuse me of being unfaithful to my wife. It turns out you already have a mistress. I had just taken a step when I heard Gu Miao's angry voice behind me. Hearing Gu Miao's voice, I smiled bitterly. I thought to myself, damn it, I would like her to be my woman, but how could a woman like this possibly have anything to do with me? But I couldn't explain this, nor could I explain the current situation. I don't know why the woman suddenly appeared here, and I don't know why she's talking to me. But I know that, from Gu Miao's perspective, she will definitely think that I have an inexplicable relationship with the woman. I'm afraid Gu Miao will offend the woman, so I smile at her and indicate that she shouldn't care. But the woman is frowning, obviously already angry. What did you say? The woman asks Gu Miao indifferently. I said you are that good-for-nothing's wild woman, and even he kind of good-for-nothing likes you. I'm afraid you're not a good person either. Gu Miao's tone was sarcastic and full of mockery. Shut the fuck up. I turned around and yelled at Gu Miao. The woman's face became more and more ugly. I could tell that she was really angry. Why should I shut up, Chen Chang'an? Are you afraid of other people talking about the shitty things you've done? Gu Miao was like a shrew, clearly wanting to have a big fight with me. Shut the fuck up. Just as I was about to say something, Luan, who had been standing next to Gu Miao the whole time, yelled at her. This time, not only was Gu Miao confused, I was also confused. I didn't know what was going on, and why Luan was yelling at Gu Miao. Luan, you. How dare you speak to me like that? Gu Miao was full of disbelief. Shut up. Luan didn't explain at all, but instead slapped Gu Miao directly. The palm landed on Gu Miao's face with a crisp sound, and it was clear that he had not held back any strength. Gu Miao stumbled 2 steps after receiving the slap, covering her face with her hands and looking at Luan with disbelief. If this were in the past, seeing Gu Miao being beaten, I would definitely have rushed up to fight with him without hesitation. But now, seeing Gu Miao being beaten, I only felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. Gu Miao was full of disbelief, but Luan didn't pay any attention to her. Instead, he walked directly up to us and bowed to the woman standing in front of me. "I'm sorry, I've offended you, please forgive me." Luan looked very nervous, his face slightly pale, and cold sweat running down his head. "Get out." The woman didn't even look at Luan, just spitting out a single word. Luan was obviously terrified. Without saying another word, he turned around and pulled Gu Miao to the car. Gu Miao was so stunned by the slap that she didn't say a word and was dragged into the car by Luan. "Still not leaving?" The woman turned her head and looked at me, with a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Go where?" I said subconsciously. "I'm a little tired, massage me." After the woman finished speaking, she walked towards the car. The driver's door opened and a bald man over 1.5 meters tall walked down. The man was wearing a black suit and was stocky. He looked like a black bear, and it seemed as if he had terrifying strength throughout his body. The most exaggerated thing was that there was actually a blooming peony tattooed on his shiny bald head. The peony was light blue and bloomed at the very top of his head. A man who exuded terrifying strength and had a peony tattooed on his head made him look like a strong demon. The woman is beautiful like a demon, while he gives off the impression of being strong like one. He gets out of the car, opens the passenger door, and lets the woman in. Then he turns his head and gives me a grin. "Still not leaving?" Although he is smiling, the strong sense of oppression from his body still makes my temples throb. Although I usually like to work out and have learned a few martial arts moves, I have no doubt that I would definitely not last more than one move against him. He must be a bodyguard for women. I made up my mind about the man and nodded politely to him before walking to the front of the car and sitting in the back. Why are you here?" In the car, the bald man started the car and I asked the woman carefully. Her appearance today made me feel better about being in front of the adulterous couple Gu Miao and Luan, but I had no idea who she was. And there was no relationship between the two of us, at most it was just the relationship between a masseuse and a customer. So no matter how you look at it, she has no reason to stick up for me. Don't think too much about it. I just happened to be passing by here, and I didn't expect to run into you. Is that woman your wife? The woman said indifferently. I gave a wry smile. She should now be considered my ex-wife. We have already completed the divorce procedures. The woman nodded lightly and stopped talking. Since she wasn't talking, I didn't want to ask anything else, but I still had some doubts in my heart. Could it really be such a coincidence that she happened to be passing by here today? And the woman's identity also made me even more curious. The Yuntian Club is one of the most exclusive clubs in Hangzhou. Usually, only dignitaries come and go here. Sister Lan is the general manager of Yuntian, so she is also a person of some status. But she treats women with great respect, and even let me serve only her. And just now, Luan's fear after seeing the woman also made me curious about her identity. Who exactly is she? There is no doubt that the woman's identity must be very influential, otherwise she would not have made Sister Lan so respectful and Luan so fearful. In the entire Hangzhou, there should be only a handful of people who can afford to drive such a car and have terrifying bodyguards like the bald man. Could it be that the woman is a canary raised by a big boss in Hangzhou? There are countless businessmen and big bosses in Hangzhou, and naturally there are also canaries raised by these big bosses. But after a moment, I shook my head again, thinking that it was unlikely. The woman is very beautiful. If we just talk about appearance, she definitely scores over 9 points, and is a presence that can instantly kill many movie stars. But the temperament of the woman is enough to prove that she definitely did not rise to power by serving men. She is cold and elegant, and is not at all the kind of woman who charms men with her beauty. A woman like this doesn't need to please men at all, and it's even less likely that she can rise to power through her looks. Who is she? Although I had a million questions in my mind, I knew one thing for sure: this woman was definitely a powerful figure in Hangzhou, someone I absolutely could not afford to offend. What are you thinking about? We're here, get off the bus. The woman's voice rang out, and I realized that the bus had already stopped at the entrance to the Yuntian Club. The bald man got off the bus, opened the door for the woman, and she got off. I quickly got off the bus too. I'm going to take a shower, you get ready, and in half an hour, go to room 206 and give me a massage. After the woman said to me, she stepped into the club in her red high-heeled boots. I looked at her back, her figure was clearly outlined by the red cheongsam, and her slender legs, which were exposed at the slit of the cheongsam, were even more beautiful. Who on earth is she? I muttered as I looked at the woman's back. Chapter 9, The Unexpected Female Neighbor. I walked into the club, went to the restroom to change into my work clothes, prepared the towels and essential oil for the massage, and then walked towards room 206. When I arrived at the door, I knocked. A woman's voice came from inside, "Come in, the door is unlocked." I twisted the knob and walked into the room. The woman had already finished her shower, and was wrapped in a towel, lying on the massage table. I walked over, sat in front of her, and the woman, with her face turned to the side, said to me, "You can start now." I nodded, took out the massage oil, poured it on her back, and then started massaging her gently. The woman turned her face to the side, her eyes closed, as if she was enjoying my massage technique. Nowadays, you can no longer see that aloof, cold feeling in women's bodies. It's as if they were tired and needed to rest. She is definitely the most beautiful woman I have ever seen, but when I face her, I dare not think of anything else. I am just curious as to why she always chooses me when she comes. I have just learned how to massage, and I don't have any skills at all. Besides, there are countless experienced masseurs in this club, so why does she insist on me? I have been working for more than a week, and she is the only customer I have had. I'm not stupid, of course I know that this is very abnormal. Normally, when a client comes, Lon will arrange for a technician to serve them. It's already been a week, so no matter what, it would be my turn. But apart from women, I don't have any other clients. This is all very abnormal. I went to ask Lon about it, but she just vaguely avoided the issue and told me not to worry, saying that even if there was only one client, she would not dismiss me. A masseuse who only serves one client and earns 20,000 yuan a month is abnormal, even if you're a fool. What's more, their club is open for business and they need to make money, so they can't be so tolerant of me. So after thinking about it, I came up with only one answer, and that is that the club deliberately arranged it so that I would only receive her as a client. Although the monthly salary of 20,000 yuan is attractive enough for me, this kind of unclear situation makes me feel a bit insecure. I looked at the woman's stunning profile and suddenly had a thought. The woman is someone important, and she only asked me to massage her. Could it be that she arranged it? Once I get an idea in my head, it becomes stronger and stronger. "Thank you today," I said while thanking the woman. Of course I was talking about the incident at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau today when she helped me vent my anger. "What are you thanking me for?" "I just happened to be passing by, didn't I say that?" The woman's tone was indifferent, and I couldn't tell what kind of emotion she was feeling. Just who are you?" I finally couldn't hold back any longer and asked out loud. The woman still didn't open her eyes, but her long eyelashes fluttered a little, and the corners of her mouth curled up, revealing a faint smile. "Oh, why do you ask?" the woman said. I'm just a little curious. I'll be honest. Don't be too curious about everything. Sometimes your curiosity can get you into trouble," the woman said. My hand paused for a moment, unsure if this was the woman warning me. It seemed to sense my emotions, and the woman continued, "Don't think too much about it. It's not that I can't tell you who I am, it's just that you don't need to know right now." After the woman finished speaking, she fell silent. I took a deep breath, knowing that she didn't want to tell me, and I didn't pursue the matter further. After half an hour or so, a massage was complete, and I helped her cover her back, gathered her things, and prepared to leave the room. However, just as I was about to walk out of the room, I couldn't help but turn back and ask her, "I work here, and you are the only customer. Did you arrange this?" The woman had already sat up, wrapped in a towel, and was holding it in place to cover her breasts. She looked at me and gave a faint smile. Not stupid at all, she had thought of it. I gave a bitter smile and thought to myself, unless I'm stupid, how could I not guess something so obvious? Without thinking, "I just like the way you look, and I don't want your hands to touch other women," she said lightly. I stood in the doorway, slightly stunned. Although she is a very cold woman, when these words came out of her mouth, they still had a touch of femininity. It was like a woman telling her man not to touch other women. "Do you have anything else to do?" the woman asked me. I came back to my senses, quickly said that I was fine, then took my leave and left the room. Back in the dressing room, I changed into my clothes. I only had her as a client here, so after serving her, I would be fine, and I could arrange the rest of the time completely on my own. This job gave me a strange feeling, because no matter how you looked at it, it didn't seem like a proper job. Where would you find a masseuse who only served one person? Was I considered to be employed? Or was it possible that a woman had fallen for me? I shook my head. Although I considered myself to be quite good looking, I was definitely not stupid enough to think that I could make a woman fall in love at first sight, especially not her. She was clearly no ordinary woman. If she were an inexperienced young girl, it would be possible for her to fall in love at first sight with a man. But she was clearly not that kind of woman. In her, apart from coldness, there was also a sense of indifference that saw through the world. So a woman like this would not have the emotions of a little girl. But why did she have to choose me to serve her? Could it really be, as she said, that she just looked more favorably upon me? I shook my head. I couldn't figure these things out for the time being, so I just stopped thinking about it. At least for now, I needed this job. I took out my phone and started checking nearby property listings. After divorcing Gu Miao, I no longer had a place to live, and I couldn't keep living in the clubhouse lounge forever. After searching, I found a suitable bachelor apartment not far away. It was fully furnished and ready for immediate occupancy, and the rent was within my budget. I called the landlord and made an appointment to see the apartment in the afternoon. After leaving the clubhouse, I had a quick bite to eat and then took a taxi to the apartment. It had only been built a short time ago, so everything was new, and I was very satisfied with the greenery in the community. The landlord showed me the apartment, which was on the 6th floor and the height was just right. I didn't nitpick too much and went downstairs directly to sign the rental contract with the landlord and get the room card. Back in the apartment, I sat alone in the room, lost in thought. Just the day before, I still had a family that I thought was happy, but now I was living alone in a bachelor apartment, becoming a lonely person. All kinds of things with Gu Miao kept popping up in my mind again and again, making my heart ache while also filling me with hatred for her. I don't know how long it took, but I let out a long breath. Since we were divorced, I should let go of the past. From then on, Gu Miao and I had no relationship whatsoever. We were already strangers, so everything about her was none of my business. Why should I hate her? After I figured all this out, I felt a little better. Looking out the window at the sky, which was almost dark, I suddenly felt an urge to drink. I put on my jacket and prepared to go out to a restaurant outside the community to have a few drinks, as a way to mourn my dead love and marriage. On the way there, I saw a Sichuan restaurant at the entrance of the community, which suited my taste. I opened the door and there was a woman standing in the doorway of the room opposite. At this moment, the woman was holding a bag of things in one hand and using her access card to swipe the door with the other. Hearing the noise behind her, the woman turned her head and glanced at me. I happened to be looking at her too, and our eyes met. We both froze. "It's you!" We almost shouted at the same time. It turned out that the woman across the hall was none other than Mu Xiaowan, who had spent the night with me the night before. "Why are you here?" Mu Xiaowan stared with wide eyes, looking incredulous. "Why are you here?" I didn't answer her question, but asked her instead. "This is my home, I live here, so why do you think I'm here?" Mu Xiaowan said with some anger. "You said you live here?" I pointed to the door across the hall in disbelief. "Of course, how did you come here, you pervert? Did you follow me, you stalker?" Mu Xiaowan took a step back, pretending to be a little nervous. "I'm telling you, don't do anything, or I'll call the police." I looked at Mu Xiaowan and couldn't help but laugh. "So she lives here, right across from me, the world's a small place." "What are you laughing at? You're laughing so lustfully, tell me quickly, did you follow me, you pervert?" Mu Xiaowan looked at me with a face full of vigilance and said. I took out my own door card and waved it at her. "I just rented the apartment today, and I never thought that I would be living across the hall from you." "Ah, what, you said you rented the room across from me?" Mu Xiaowan looked incredulous. "Yes, from now on, we'll be neighbors." I nodded at her. Mu Xiaowan still looked at me warily, from top to bottom, with a face full of disbelief. "Do you have some kind of idea about me, and deliberately rent the room across from me? Big sister, do I know you well? We were together just last night, and I don't even know where you live. Do you think I could have followed you and deliberately rented the apartment opposite yours?" I explained to Mu Xiaowan with some helplessness. "That's right, you don't even know where I live, could it really be such a coincidence?" Mu Xiaowan felt a little unbelievable. Even I feel like I'm dreaming. I bumped into my drinking buddy last night, and I never expected that today he would become my neighbor. This is too fucking coincidental. Where are you going? Mu Xiaowan finally let down her guard and asked me. I'm going downstairs to get something to eat. I said. Come on, eat with me. You're lucky today, you can taste my cooking. Mu Xiaowan opened the door while saying this, indicating for me to go in with her. Chapter 10, A Sense of Ambiguity. You can cook? I asked Mu Xiaowan in disbelief. These days, it's rare for girls to know how to cook, especially a pretty girl like her. Shouldn't she be a complete klutz? Oomph, who do you think you're talking to? I'm a chef. Mu Xiaowan snorted, her cute nose wrinkling. Fine, I'll try your chef's cooking today. Since she invited me, I didn't want to refuse. Besides, we'll be neighbors from now on, so we'll see each other all the time, so there's no need to be polite. After entering the door, I looked around. Mu Xiaowan's room was clean and tidy, which showed that she was a very clean girl who paid attention to personal hygiene. Nowadays, I see a lot of girls online who wear flashy clothes, but their living spaces are a mess, like a dog's den. Fortunately, Mu Xiaowan is not like that, or I would have turned around and left. But I was being paranoid. A girl who can buy her own food and cook for herself can't be that lazy. What are you looking at? Mu Xiaowan asked warily as she changed her shoes. I'm just checking to see if there's any lace or black silk underwear. Without batting an eyelid, I took off my shoes and put on some disposable slippers. Good, you really are a lecher, I shouldn't have let you in. Mu Xiaowan said, crossing her arms. I gave her a hee-hee smile. It was too late to regret it now. You're calling the wolf into the room. Stalking a pervert, you big pervert. If you're not honest, be careful, I'll take a knife and castrate you. Mu Xiaowan said, carrying the groceries into the kitchen. We spent a night together before, and nothing happened. She should be at ease with me, so we're just having a simple argument. Mu Xiaowan, who had walked to the kitchen door, turned back and said to me, have a seat for a while. There are drinks in the fridge, help yourself if you're thirsty. After saying that, she went into the kitchen and started working. I sat on the sofa and couldn't help but smile wryly. She really doesn't treat me as an outsider. Perhaps it was because of the time we spent together that night, that she had a sense of trust in me. I nodded, thinking that must be the case. Fate is really something amazing. We just spent a night together last night, and now we're neighbors. Mu Xiaowan's sofa had a 1-meter-tall woolly bear sitting on it, right next to me. I raised my hand and gave the woolly bear 2 slaps, then grinned. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you hitting my stupid bear? I turned my head and saw Mu Xiaowan standing in the kitchen doorway, her arms crossed, glaring at me. Ah, that. It's dirty, I'll wipe it for it. I giggled nervously as I lifted my hand and wiped the teddy bear's face twice. I'm telling you, don't bully stupid, it's my best friend, if I see it again, you better watch out. Mu Xiaowan said while picking up a spatula in the kitchen and waving it at me. Although it was a threat, the movement looked a bit seductive and mischievous. The main reason was that she was just so beautiful, and no matter what she did, she made people feel comfortable. Damn, I really have a bit of a dog-licking trait. I despised myself in my heart and quickly said to Mu Xiaowan, I dare not, I definitely dare not. Mu Xiaowan snorted and turned her head back to her work. I looked at the teddy bear next to her and Mu Xiaowan said it was her best friend. Considering a teddy bear as a friend, Mu Xiaowan must be a very lonely girl, right? Mu Xiaowan didn't lie. Her cooking skills were really good, and in about half an hour, she had already served 4 dishes. Stir-fried snow peas, sweet and sour pork ribs, stir-fried meat with chile, and celery, and lily. The combination of meat and vegetables in the 4 dishes looked appetizing. I couldn't help but take a bite with my chopsticks. It was delicious. So, what do you think of my cooking? Mu Xiaowan asked, looking at me proudly. Not bad, not bad. You could be a chef in a restaurant with your cooking. Nowadays, there are very few girls who know how to cook, especially pretty girls like you. I didn't hold back on my praise. When I was with Gu Miao, she never cooked. I always came home from work and bought the ingredients to cook. It really surprised me that a pretty girl like Mu Xiaowan could also cook like this. Do you want some more to drink? Mu Xiaowan sat opposite me, looking at me with a hint of unspecified expectation in her eyes. Aren't you afraid of drinking too much again? I smiled at her, remembering the scene from last night, and my heart couldn't help but stir. Cut it out, this is in my house, what's there to be afraid of if you drink too much? If you dare to mess around, I'll make you a eunuch. Mu Xiaowan pretended to be fierce. Good, I just want to drink a little. I smiled and nodded at her. Mu Xiaowan pulled open the cabinet and took out a bottle of white wine, a bottle of Flying Sky Maotai. You actually have this kind of good wine. I was a little surprised that Mu Xiaowan, a girl, would have white wine stored at home, and it was even Maotai. I usually like to drink a little, but I drink it at home by myself. Bars are the kind of place I went to for the first time yesterday. While she was talking, Mu Xiaowan handed me the wine and gestured for me to open it. Ah, your first time? I was a little surprised, but I didn't take Mu Xiaowan's words seriously. After all, girls always say one thing but mean another, and it's hard to tell if they're telling the truth or not. The prettier the girl, the more likely she is to lie. What, you don't believe me? Mu Xiaowan saw that I didn't believe her and asked me. I believe you, you were there for the first time. I quickly nodded to cover up. Judging from your expression, you obviously don't believe me. It's true that it was my first time going to a place like that. Yesterday I was just feeling down and wanted to drown my sorrows in alcohol. I'm not the kind of bad girl you think I am. Mu Xiaowan glared at me, but after a moment she laughed. This is really funny. Why did I explain so much to you? You can believe it or not. I really do believe you. I nodded, and poured wine into a glass for her and myself. Whether you believe me or not is none of my business. Come on, this is the second time we've met, cheers. Mu Xiaowan said, lifting her glass. I lifted my glass too, just about to clink with hers when Mu Xiaowan tilted her head back and gulped the wine down in one go. I gave a wry smile, and drained my glass in one go too. We set the glasses down, and our eyes met, the atmosphere suddenly becoming a little more delicate. There seemed to be an inexplicable emotion between her and me. It was a little ambiguous and hard to describe. Mu Xiaowan looked at me, and perhaps because of the wine, 2 flushes of red rose on her pretty face, and even her eyes became a little hazy. Chapter 11, The Beautiful Poisoned Widow. It seemed that we both felt the atmosphere was a little awkward. We looked away from each other. Mu Xiaowan was silent, and she lowered her head, not knowing what to think. I coughed and took the initiative to speak, asking her, by the way, I still don't know what you do for a living. I spoke, taking the initiative to break the silence and the awkward atmosphere. Mu Xiaowan smiled at me and told me that she worked as a flight attendant. I wasn't surprised when she told me she was a flight attendant. A pretty girl like her deserves the job. Your ex-boyfriend's family is a billionaire? I asked Mu Xiaowan. Why do you ask? Mu Xiaowan was a little puzzled, but she shook her head anyway. Then he must be the son of a high-ranking official? I continued. No, his family is actually very ordinary. Mu Xiaowan replied. Oh, I see, he must be born without pupils. I nodded. Why do you say that? Mu Xiaowan didn't react for a moment. A person without pupils is blind, and only a blind person would break up with such an outstanding girl as you. I said seriously. My words made Mu Xiaowan burst out laughing. The girl's smile was like a blooming flower, pleasing to the eye. You're so eloquent, your ex-wife must have regretted divorcing you. Mu Xiaowan said with a smile. I don't care if she regrets it or not, I just hope she can be happy in the future. I said, poured myself a glass of wine and gulped it down. You don't hate her anymore? Mu Xiaowan looked at me with curiosity in her eyes. The moment I caught her in bed with another man, I really wanted to kill her. But now I've let go. Since she feels that I can't give her happiness, of course she has the right to pursue her own happiness. It's just that she chose the wrong method. If she had spoken to me, I would have let her go, instead of bringing a man home to disgust me. I said, and took another drink. But now that we're divorced, I don't need to worry about these things anymore. It's all in the past. Mu Xiaowan said, raised her glass, and touched it to mine. We both used alcohol to drown out our lost marriage and love. Forget about all that. Since we've become neighbors, we'll have an extra drinking buddy from now on. Cheers. Mu Xiaowan said, raising her glass again. We lightly touched our glasses and then drained them in one go. A bottle of Maotai was already gone before we knew it. Mu Xiaowan's cheeks were flushed and her eyes were glazed over, clearly tipsy already. My head was a little dizzy too. Oh, right, I forgot to ask you, what do you do for a living? Mu Xiaowan looked at me and asked. I used to be an operations manager at a live streaming company, but I'm unemployed now. I work as a masseuse at the Yuntian Club. I have nothing to hide from Mu Xiaowan, so I told her directly. Besides, I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of in this job as a normal masseuse. Ah, you're a masseuse and work at the Yuntian Club. Hearing my words, Mu Xiaowan was a little surprised. No wonder that woman was there. Mu Xiaowan muttered to herself. What do you mean, no wonder? I'm a little confused, I asked her. I was also at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau today. Mu Xiaowan looked up and said to me. What, you were there too? I was a little shocked when I heard Mu Xiaowan's words. I didn't expect her to go there today. Of course, I promised you yesterday that I would take revenge for you. I, Mu Xiaowan, always keep my word. Mu Xiaowan nodded. But, why didn't I see you? I asked her a little puzzled. Because I never got off the bus. Why didn't you get off the bus? I was a little surprised. With that woman Zhu Yeqing waiting for you at the station, why would I get off the bus? Mu Xiaowan said with some dissatisfaction. Zhu Yeqing? Who is Zhu Yeqing? I was still confused. You don't know Zhu Yeqing? Mu Xiaowan obviously didn't believe it. I shook my head. I had heard of the name Zhu Yeqing, but I had never met her in person. Zhu Yeqing was a legend in Hangzhou, a legend that combined beauty and cold-bloodedness. Zhu Yeqing was a woman, nicknamed Zhu Yeqing, the president of the Jinding Group in Hangzhou, a woman known to almost everyone in the entire city. The legendary Zhu Yeqing was just like her nickname, a beautiful but dangerous viper. Zhu Yeqing is a widow who married Hangzhou's new rich man Don Liang 3 years ago. Don Liang was originally a street thug, but with his own abilities, he built the Jinding Group in just a few years and became a member of the upper class in Hangzhou. 3 years ago, Don Liang was at the height of his fame and married Zhu Yeqing, the eldest daughter of the Zhu family and known as the most beautiful woman in Hangzhou. It is said that half of the wealthy families in Hangzhou attended the wedding. Unfortunately, that night, on their wedding night, Don Liang suddenly died of a sudden stroke, and Zhu Yeqing became a widow on her first day of marriage. Don Liang's official cause of death was a sudden stroke. However, everyone in Hangzhou said it was because of Zhu Yeqing, saying that she was born unlucky with husbands and was a beautiful snake who ate men without spitting out their bones, saying that if you marry her, you will definitely die. In no time at all, the whole city of Hangzhou knew the name of the poisonous woman Zhu Yeqing, and everyone wanted to conquer her, but they were afraid of her beauty. After Don Liang's death, no one knows how many people were eyeing his assets, wanting to take them for themselves, and even more people with power and influence were eyeing the pretty widow Zhu Yeqing, wanting to get her into their beds. But no matter if they coveted Don Liang's assets or Zhu Yeqing, they all failed. Instead of collapsing, Don Liang's Jinding Group has grown even larger and is now one of the top 5 industries in Hangzhou. And Zhu Yeqing is still unscathed. There are many legends that say that if a rich man makes a lewd remark to Zhu Yeqing, his body will be found in the Qiantang River the next day. These legends, whether true or not, have cast a veil of mystery over the widow Zhu Yeqing. All the men in Hangzhou wanted to get Zhu Yeqing, but none of them dared to do so. In recent years, Zhu Yeqing has rarely appeared, but the legends about her in Hangzhou have not diminished at all. Some people even say that she has to change a man every night, and by the next day, that man will be completely sucked dry by her and become a human corpse. In recent years, Zhu Yeqing's reputation has become increasingly demonized. Today, the woman in the red cheongsam is Zhu Yeqing. You don't know her? Mu Xiaowan couldn't believe it. What, you're saying she's Zhu Yeqing? Hearing Mu Xiaowan's words, I shook my hand, and the chopsticks in my hand fell on the table. Chapter 12, A Man and a Woman Alone. What do you want with me? She is actually Zhu Yeqing, the poisonous widow known to the people of Hangzhou, Zhu Yeqing, who eats men without spitting out the bones. This news shocked me so much. I have guessed her true identity many times, but I never expected that she would actually be Zhu Yeqing. I never expected that I would be involved with her, and that I would give her massages every day. You really don't know that she is Zhu Yeqing? Mu Xiaowan still didn't believe it. I really don't know, why would I lie to you? I shook my head, feeling a little magical about it all. Zhu Yeqing, the poisonous widow who is like a poisonous snake in the mouths of the people of Hangzhou and whom no one dared to provoke, would actually be my client, my only client. And I knew that the Yuntian Club was owned by Zhu Yeqing. So, it was her decision to let me be the masseur, to massage only her? Why would she do that, and why did she pick me? Do you think I'm handsome? I turned my head and looked at Mu Xiaowan. Mu Xiaowan gave me a look of contempt. You're not ugly, but you're not handsome either. Although her words hurt a little, they were the truth. I have a clear understanding of my appearance. Although I'm not ugly, I'm not handsome either. At most, I'm just average, or slightly above average, of course, in my own opinion. With this kind of appearance, I can't even charm the average girl, let alone a woman like Zhu Yeqing. So the idea that she fell in love with me at first sight is simply impossible. But why did she choose me to be her professional masseur? And I'm only allowed to massage her, I'm not allowed to touch other women. Hey, you still haven't told me what your relationship with Zhu Yeqing is, and why did she help you out today? Seeing that I was in a daze, Mu Xiaowan nudged me with her elbow. I really don't know her. I looked confused. Humph, liar, you men's words just can't be trusted, you don't know her, and she would specifically go to the front door of the Civil Affairs Bureau to vent for you? Mu Xiaowan obviously didn't believe me. Sis, really, I really don't know her, she's just one of my customers. I explained helplessly. Customer? Mu Xiaowan's eyebrows shot up, obviously intrigued. There was nothing between Zhu Yeqing and I that I needed to hide, so I told Mu Xiaowan everything about how I had met Zhu Yeqing. She listened quietly to the end, staring at me straight, not even blinking, for a long time. I felt uncomfortable under her gaze. What are you looking at? Mu Xiaowan finally looked away, shaking her head a little disappointed. I thought you had some hidden charm that I hadn't noticed, but now it seems I was wrong. What exactly are you trying to say? I was a little annoyed by Mu Xiaowan's blow. I thought it was because you were handsome, and Zhu Yeqing had fallen for you, but now that's ruled out, unless she's blind. You? I was so angry at Mu Xiaowan that I couldn't speak, and I finished the wine in the glass. Although I didn't want to believe it, I had to admit that what Mu Xiaowan said was the truth. Not to mention that I'm not good-looking enough, even if I really were, so what? A woman like Zhu Yeqing, having come this far and reached her current position, has seen all kinds of men. If the men who want to woo her lined up, they would fill the Qiantang River Bridge. So Zhu Yeqing would never be swayed by a man's looks. What the hell is going on? I shook my head, still unable to figure it out. Come on, what's there to think about? She's not going to eat you. You're getting paid, you have an easy job, so what are you worried about? Mu Xiaowan said to me. I thought about it for a while and felt that she was right. No matter how powerful Zhu Yeqing is, she is just a woman, so what am I afraid of? Besides, there are countless men in Hangzhou who want to win her favor, so even if she really does fancy me, I should be happy about it. Forget it, I don't want to think about it anymore, let's drink. I had already finished the bottle of Maotai, and Mu Xiaowan brought out another box of beer. It was obvious that she really liked to drink. The two of us drank and chatted nonsense. She had obviously drunk too much and berated her ex-boyfriend. And I also knew that her boyfriend was not just an ordinary family as she had said, but a veritable second-generation rich kid, and that last time she had not told me the truth. But I didn't take these minor problems to heart at all. After all, last time was our first meeting, and it was only natural that we would hold back from each other. Mu Xiaowan said that her ex-boyfriend had been a classmate of hers at university, and that his family owned a listed company. He had pursued Mu Xiaowan at university, showing her all kinds of attention and vowing to take care of her for the rest of her life. Girls can't stand sweet nothings like that, so Mu Xiaowan had agreed to go out with him. They had been in love for 3 years, and Mu Xiaowan had even started planning their wedding, but yesterday the man had turned up at her door with her best friend and broken up with her. Mu Xiaowan didn't cry or make a scene, she just calmly ended the relationship and went to a bar to get drunk, where she happened to run into me. You tell me, isn't it fate that we met yesterday right after I broke up with him, and today you're living across the hall from me? Mu Xiaowan was already drunk, with a rosy blush on her cheeks, and especially the way she was looking at me now, as if there was some kind of emotion in her eyes that would make a man impulsive. It really is quite fate. I didn't dare to look into Mu Xiaowan's eyes, and just nodded. Do you really give Zhu Yeqing a massage every day? Mu Xiaowan looked at me with a smile. Yes, I have no need to lie to you. I said. Then come and give me a massage so that I can try the skills of Zhu Yeqing's personal masseuse. Mu Xiaowan stood up and lay down on the sofa. After she got home, she changed into a nightdress with a round skirt embroidered with a cartoon cat pattern. Now she was lying on the sofa, her long legs exposed, which made me stare. Hey, what are you looking at? Hurry up and come over here. Mu Xiaowan slapped the sofa a little unhappily. Big sister, my massage skills really aren't very good. I explained to Mu Xiaowan helplessly. I only learned massage for a few days when I went to work at the Yuntian Club, so I don't really have any skills. I don't care, today I want to enjoy Zhu Yeching's personal masseuse. Mu Xiaowan continued to pat the sofa. I was a little helpless. Women who get drunk are indeed more difficult to deal with than men. I walked over to Mu Xiaowan and asked her to move in a little, sitting next to her waist. Hurry up and let me relax. Mu Xiaowan tilted her head and mumbled incoherently. I placed my hands on her shoulders and began to give her a gentle massage. At first, I used a little too much pressure, and Mu Xiaowan let out a soft moan, so I reduced the pressure. You're not very good at this, I really don't know how Zhu Yeching could like you. Mu Xiaowan said indistinctly with her eyes closed. I don't know how to massage. I smiled wryly and stopped. Why did you stop? Keep pressing, I'm not relaxed yet. Seeing me stop, Mu Xiaowan was a little displeased. Didn't you say my technique was bad? I shook my head and continued to massage her. Just because I said your technique is bad doesn't mean you can stop. Mu Xiaowan was a little dissatisfied. I had to continue to massage her. Mu Xiaowan was lying on the sofa with her eyes closed, and I didn't know if she had fallen asleep. I had been massaging her for a long time, and when I saw that she hadn't moved, I thought she had fallen asleep. To be honest, last night, in the hotel. Did you really have no other thoughts about me? I was just about to stop when Mu Xiaowan suddenly spoke again. WH. What thoughts? I paused. What thoughts did you say? Mu Xiaowan tilted her head and gave me a glare. I pondered for a moment, not knowing how to answer her. Being in the same room as such a beautiful woman as Mu Xiaowan, and last night she was so proactive, unless you are an abnormal man, you will definitely have thoughts. I am a normal man, so of course I will have normal thoughts, but how can I say this? Humph, men are all the same. Mu Xiaowan said. Big sister, you kept flirting with me last night, and I'm not a eunuch. I defended myself. Oh, so you got the wrong idea when I flirted with you? But nothing happened between us last night, are you really impotent? Mu Xiaowan's voice became softer. Don't be ridiculous, last night, if you hadn't thrown up, I would have. Oh, what would you have done? Mu Xiaowan interrupted me. I want to. I stuttered for a long time, but still couldn't say it. Well, now you have your chance. If you want to do something to me, you can try. Mu Xiaowan's voice sounded softly, as if it carried some kind of unspeakable magic. Chapter 13, You're at best AB. Mu Xiaowan's voice was a little ambiguous, as if it carried an indescribable temptation. I was already a little drunk, and now I felt even warmer, and my throat was a little dry. Her provocations made me feel a little vindictive. I grabbed her shoulders and whispered in her ear, You're forcing my hand, don't regret it. I have to admit that Mu Xiaowan is a standard beauty. Although she doesn't have the demon-like appearance of Zhu Yeching, she can definitely be considered a beauty. I don't think anyone could stand it if they were told all the time by such a beautiful woman that they weren't good enough. Not to mention that Mu Xiaowan was now lying on the sofa, motionless, looking like she was ready to be picked up. No man could remain calm. I waited for a while, but Mu Xiaowan didn't make a sound. Hey, I'm going to do it. We agreed that tomorrow you won't regret it. I said to her again. But Mu Xiaowan still didn't respond. I leaned over to her face. At this time, Mu Xiaowan's cheeks were slightly red, her eyes were closed, and a slight snore sounded. She had actually fallen asleep. I looked at Mu Xiaowan's side face, and for a moment I felt a little bit of heartache. What the hell is this? She gets all worked up and then falls asleep. What about me? I looked at Mu Xiaowan, and I really felt an urge to do whatever I wanted. But in the end, I resisted. Although I like beautiful women, I absolutely could not do anything to take advantage of someone while they were drunk. Besides, now that she was drunk, if I did something and she regretted it in the morning, what would I do? 3 years is a long time, and I don't want to go in there and pick up the pieces. I got up and went to the bedroom to get a blanket and carefully covered Mu Xiaowan with it. The girl's face was turned to the side, as if there was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth, and there was an indescribable beauty in the light. She is so beautiful, just like a piece of delicious cake, tempting you to take a bite. But I am not a thief, and reason finally overcame my primitive desire. I got up, walked to the balcony, opened the window, lit a cigarette, and looked at the city under the night sky. I felt an inexplicable sense of emptiness in my heart. Right now, I am confused for the first time in my life. When I was in college, I was young and never thought about what to do in the future. After graduation, I got married and worked from 9 to 5 every day to support my family. Although it was hard, I enjoyed it and always felt that life would just continue on like this. But now, my life has changed. I lost my job and my wife ran off with someone else. Looking back, I realized that the happiness I thought I had was so fragile and vulnerable in the face of reality. Compared to the beauty of my fantasies, reality is cruel. Although my heart aches, I must learn to accept reality and learn from my failures. To indulge in grief is the behavior of a weak person. The truly strong person is able to change reality. My marriage to Gu Miao is over, and I have no more attachment to her. I do not indulge in grief, but I find that I lack the ability to change reality. The failure of the marriage was due to Gu Miao's infidelity, but in the final analysis, it was due to my own abilities. Of course, not physically, but in life. In the past, I always failed to recognize reality, indulging in the life I imagined. I never thought about the problem that the foundation of all happiness comes from material things. If material life cannot be satisfied, then where is the happiness? In the final analysis, it's about money. Luan is not better than me, but he is richer than me, and that is the reality. So now for me, making money is the most important thing. But how the hell do I make money? Do I just keep working as a masseuse? I shook my head. That's not realistic. Although the income of a masseur is quite satisfactory for me now, there is ultimately no big future in it. There are many turning points in life. Strength is a hard condition, but there are many capable people who end up accomplishing nothing in their lives. One of the reasons for this is luck. Thinking about this, the woman in a red cheongsam, Zhu Yeqing, involuntarily came to mind. She is the richest woman in Hangzhou, and also the most powerful. There are countless people in Hangzhou who want to befriend her, and now I am Zhu Yeqing's masseur, or rather, her exclusive masseur. Perhaps she is my time? But I quickly shook my head and smiled bitterly. Although I don't know why Zhu Yeqing has set her sights on me, a woman like her has been through it all. It's not that easy to get something from Zhu Yeqing. To put it bluntly, if you want someone to look up to you, you must have the strength to be looked up to. I scanned myself and sadly discovered that there didn't seem to be anything about me that she would value. But why did she have to choose me as her masseur? I couldn't figure out what was going on after thinking about it for a long time. Standing on the balcony and blowing in the wind for a while, the alcohol came back and made me feel even more dizzy. Anyone who has been drunk knows that after drinking too much, you are fine at first, but as soon as you get a little wind, you get drunk. I shook my head and tried to stay awake, preparing to go home and sleep. But after just a few steps, my head was spinning uncontrollably. Before I lost consciousness, I saw the sofa next to me and collapsed directly onto it. In a daze, I don't know how long I slept for, but I felt hot all over. After the hangover, even my throat was parched. I opened my eyes and saw a pretty face. The owner of the face was none other than Mu Xiaowan. The moment I saw her, I immediately came to my senses, and then I felt my body being tightly embraced by Mu Xiaowan's hands and feet. She was like an octopus, clinging to me tightly. I was shocked for a moment, but I felt that both of our clothes were still on, so I let out a sigh of relief. Last night, I was drunk and fell on the sofa. At that time, Mu Xiaowan was also sleeping on the sofa, so... Although Mu Xiaowan was hugging me tightly, the headache from the hangover made me have no other thoughts. I just wanted to find something to drink. I struggled gently to get away from Mu Xiaowan's entanglement. Who knew that the next moment, she opened her eyes, and then our eyes met, and we were stunned for more than 10 seconds. The next moment, Mu Xiaowan let out a high-pitched scream like a cat that had been stepped on its tail, and she jumped straight up. "You rascal, what did you do to me last night?" Mu Xiaowan covered her chest and pointed at me, yelling. I gave a bitter smile. This scene was exactly the same as yesterday in the hotel. I was used to it. Without any excuse, I just sat up and picked up a bottle of mineral water on the table and gulped it down. "Stop yelling. We both drank too much yesterday," I said weakly. "Rogue, you did this to me when you were drunk." Mu Xiaowan was full of anger, and I didn't know if she was really angry or just pretending. "Big sister, we didn't even take our clothes off. What could I do to you?" I helplessly spread my hands. Mu Xiaowan examined her body with both hands, then let out a sigh of relief, but still looked at me warily. "How did you end up sleeping with me?" I looked at Mu Xiaowan, opened my mouth, and tried to explain, but I didn't say anything because I knew that even if I did, she probably wouldn't believe me. Women at this time of the month are not at all reasonable, and you have to wait until she calms down. Well, I didn't sleep well last night, so I'm going to go back and catch up on some sleep. I quickly got up, but then realized that I had taken off my shoes without knowing when. I quickly found my shoes and didn't dare say anything to Mu Xiaowan, but instead scurried to the door. You rascal, I was right, you really are a wolf. Mu Xiaowan called out from behind me. I was really a little angry, so while opening the door, I said to her, I don't know if I'm a rascal or not, but you're lying when you say you're a C cup. I tried it and you're at most a B cup. It's true that saying a man is small can make someone angry, but saying a woman is small can make her even angrier. Mu Xiaowan was furious at my words, and she picked up a pillow and threw it at me. You dirty rascal, get out. I quickly slipped out of the door, and then closed it. Inside, I heard the sound of the pillow hitting the door, along with Mu Xiaowan's angry growl. Fortunately, I managed to escape, and I let out a sigh of relief. I picked up my shoes and prepared to go back to my room across the hall. I just looked up, but suddenly I noticed a woman in a pink dress across the hall staring at me in shock. My room is 609, and the woman was standing in the doorway of 608, right next door to me. If I guessed correctly, she should be my neighbor. Judging from her shocked expression, she must have heard the commotion clearly. The woman was very pretty, with long hair that fell to her shoulders, giving her an intellectual beauty. I felt a little embarrassed, so I smiled at her and said, "It's a misunderstanding." The woman still kept staring at me, then raised her hand and pointed at me, saying in disbelief, "Chen Chang'an, you are Chen Chang'an." Hearing her call out my name, I froze for a moment and looked at the woman carefully. She was very beautiful, but that pretty face felt familiar to me. I shook my head a little and the memories that had faded resurfaced, allowing me to finally recognize her. Hani, you are Hani. I looked at her and said in disbelief. Chapter 14 The School Beauty, My Female Neighbor. Hani, a name that had disappeared from my memory for several years. This name was accompanied by the once beautiful youth that I had lost. That was when I first entered university, a girl who amazed the entire school, the undisputed school beauty of our year. Yes, Hani was my university classmate, and we were in the same class in the same year. When I first entered university, Hani's seat was right next to mine. She was an excellent girl, and naturally many boys courted her. Although I was closest to her, I knew the gap between us and so I never pursued her. During the 4 years of university, countless boys pursued Hani, but I never heard her go out with any of them. After graduating from university, Hani went abroad, and she never participated in any of the class reunions over the years. That gorgeous and peerless school beauty has gradually faded from my mind. I never imagined that I would see her again here today. Especially since I had just woken up from a hangover and was still without a shoe, looking a little disheveled no matter how I looked at it. Chen Chang'an, what's this? Hani pointed at me, looking puzzled. This. I was just thinking about how to explain it when the door behind me suddenly opened and Mu Xiaowan looked at me angrily. You bastard, what did you do to me yesterday? How did you know I only have a B? Mu Xiaowan's words had just come out when she saw Hani across from her, and for a moment she froze. Hani opened her mouth and looked at Mu Xiaowan in disbelief. I didn't know what to say in this situation, so I just kept quiet. The atmosphere suddenly fell into an awkward silence. Mu Xiaowan glanced at me, snorted, and said, "I'll deal with you later, you pervert." After that, Mu Xiaowan slammed the door shut. Cold sweat broke out on my head. I looked at Hani again, and she was also looking at me, with an unfathomable emotion in her eyes. Don't get me wrong, she and I. I tried to explain to Hani, but as soon as the words came out, I realized that it was hard to explain such trivial matters, and the more I explained, the more confused I became. Do you live here, and is she your girlfriend or wife? Hani gave a small smile and pointed behind me and asked. No, this isn't my room, this is. I quickly pointed to 609 and said to her. What, you live here, so we're neighbors? Hani was a little incredulous. Yes, we are neighbors. I just moved in yesterday. I wiped the cold sweat from my forehead. And you and her? Hani was still puzzled. I have nothing with her, I just met her yesterday. You just met her yesterday and you're living together? Hani's mouth hung open, looking a little surprised. It's not what you think, don't get me wrong, she and I really don't have anything. I explained again, a little helplessly. Hani didn't say anything else, but turned around and opened the door, saying to me, "Old classmate, since we'll be neighbors from now on, come in and have a seat?" "Okay, okay." I nodded without thinking, but when I got to the door I hesitated. I had drunk a lot yesterday, and I still smelled of alcohol, so it seemed a bit inappropriate to go to a girl's room. "What are you standing there for? Come in." Hani urged me if I didn't come in. "I'm smelling of alcohol, can I go in?" I felt a bit embarrassed. "It's fine, just come in," Hani said. Hearing her words, I didn't hesitate any longer and walked in, taking a few looks around. Hani's room was very clean and tidy. "Have a seat, I'll get you a drink," Hani said, walking over to the refrigerator and taking out a drink for me. I was so thirsty that I took it and gulped it down. "It's been a few years since we last saw each other, how have you been?" Hani said, while sitting down on the sofa. I sat opposite her and took a few looks at her. Hani no longer had the youthful appearance she had back then, but looked more mature. She also had an intellectual beauty about her, quiet and refined, which were the best words to describe her. Of course, as the school beauty back then, she was naturally beautiful. "Not bad, I can still get by," I smiled bitterly. "I heard that you married Gu Miao, why isn't she here?" Hani stared at me and asked softly. Hearing Gu Miao's name, the bitter smile on my face grew even wider, but I was also a little surprised. She had been abroad for all these years, and she actually knew that I had married Gu Miao. "I just got divorced, yesterday," I said as if it were nothing. "What, you got divorced?" My answer obviously came as a bit of a surprise to Hani, who quickly apologized to me. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." "It's okay, it's all in the past." I waved my hand to indicate that I didn't care. "Why did you get divorced?" "I heard them say that you were always very good to Gu Miao." Hani continued to ask. I looked at Hani strangely. What she said was a bit strange. She had been abroad for so many years, how did she know about the relationship between Gu Miao and me? Even if some classmates called, they would rarely mention me. How did she know so much about my situation? There are many times when it is useless to simply be nice to someone, because people want a bit too much. I didn't explain anything to her in detail, I just squeezed out a smile. But I know that my smile probably doesn't look very good. Hani looked at me, her eyebrows slightly furrowed, and then nodded lightly without asking anything else. She is a very smart woman and should have guessed. Then who was that woman just now? Hani asked again. I know she is talking about Mu Xiaowan, and I can't help but get a headache. I've only known her for 2 days, so there's really nothing. I tried to explain. Oh, you've only known each other for 2 days and you're already spending the night together. And the way she looked at me just now, did you do something to her last night? Hani said this while staring at me with her beautiful eyes. I felt a little guilty when I looked at her, even though I really didn't do anything with Mu Xiaowan last night. After all, a man and a woman were alone together for a whole night, and no one would believe my explanation even if I tried to defend myself. There was no way to explain this mess. Apart from being a little embarrassed, Hanyi's current behavior surprised me a little, and the feeling was a little strange. No matter how you look at it, this feeling is like the scene of a woman interrogating her boyfriend about what bad things he did yesterday. It's hard for me to explain this, but don't worry, I really have nothing to do with her. I might as well not explain. Upon hearing my words, Hani rolled her eyes. What do I care if you have anything to do with her? What's there not to trust? Chapter 15, That Mysterious Female Internet Friend. I felt a little embarrassed, knowing that I had said the wrong thing. Although Hani and I were college classmates, there was really no need to explain such things so clearly to others. What's wrong? She was the one who asked just now. So, when did you return to China? In order to relieve the awkwardness, I quickly changed the subject. The company has a project in China, and I am in charge of it. I have been back for a month. Hani said indifferently. That's great, now you're the head of a branch office. Congratulations, Manager Han. I said with a smile. Hani gave me a cold stare. He's still so smooth-talking. In college, although I never pursued Hani, we usually communicated a lot. At that time, I was more talkative and often made Hani laugh. Are you married? I asked Hani casually. No. Hani shook his head. Why aren't you married yet? You're so outstanding, there must be a line of people chasing after you. You must be too picky. Listen to me, don't be choosy, just quickly find someone similar and get married, otherwise you'll be an old maid if you wait any longer. I teased her. We were old classmates, so we didn't have to be so cautious in what we said. Hani gave me another blank stare. You don't need to worry about me, I'm fine on my own. What's going on with you and that girl across the street? Hearing Hani bring the issue back to the table, I was a bit speechless. But since we would all be neighbors from now on, we would see each other all the time, so I had to clear the air. After some deliberation, I told Hani the whole story of how I met Mu Xiaowan. Of course, I definitely wouldn't say anything about staying in a hotel with Mu Xiaowan the night before. Is that all? Hani listened quietly to me finish, and asked me with a hint of skepticism. That's really all, I have no need to lie to you. I helplessly spread out my hands. Humph, then why did she just say that you know the size of her there? Hani said while gesturing with her hands, just immediately noticing something wrong. She quickly let go of her hands, and a blush involuntarily rose on her face. I was just trying to provoke her, I didn't think she was really that small. I laughed nervously. Hearing my words, Hani couldn't help but give me another glare. Now her face was slightly red, and coupled with her expression, it looked like a girl being spoiled, which made my heart involuntarily touched a little. Hani has always been a school flower level existence, and of course I like such a beautiful woman. It's just that back then I knew the gap between myself and her, and I never dared to reveal my feelings in front of her. I hadn't seen her for a few years, and now she was sitting opposite me, which made me feel a little strange. I glanced at her, and without thinking, I raised my hand and gestured at my chest. You've grown up quite a bit in a few years, at least a C-cup, I'd say. As soon as the words came out of my mouth, I froze, wishing I could slap myself. What the hell was I talking about? Hani, who was standing across from me, was also stunned, and her pretty face turned redder and redder. Well, Chen Chang'an, after not seeing each other for a few years, not only have you become smooth-talking, but you've also become a rascal. Hani pointed her finger at me in anger, while her other hand involuntarily covered her chest. She looked at me as if I were a sex maniac. I didn't mean it, it's not what you think. I hurriedly explained to her, but no matter how you looked at it, the explanation was somewhat feeble. Humph, I finally know what kind of person you are. No wonder people just called you a pervert, you are a big pervert. I was embarrassed, cold sweat came down my head, and I thought to myself, why is my mouth so damned annoying? I haven't seen my old classmate in a few years, and I came up and molested her, what a damn shame. I still have to go to work, I'll go back first. I stood up a little panicked and walked towards the door. When I got to the door, I just opened it, and behind me I heard Hani's voice, wait. I made a face and turned back, apologizing to her with a face full of apologies. Sister, it was my fault for speaking out of turn just now. I apologize to you, so please just let it go. Hani's face was flushed with shame, and there was a hint of anger. That's not what I'm talking about. Ah, then what else are you talking about? I asked in confusion. I haven't been back for a few years, and I haven't seen any of my old classmates. I want to organize a class reunion tonight, and you should go tonight too. Han Yi's tone carried a hint of command. Upon hearing Han Yi's words, I frowned. A class reunion? Doesn't that mean Gu Miao will have to attend too? Hani seemed to know what I was thinking and said to me, don't worry, I won't invite Gu Miao. I don't know her anyway. I noticed that Han Yi's tone was a little cold when she mentioned Gu Miao. This made me a little puzzled. Back in school, their relationship wasn't exactly great, but it wasn't bad either. Now she's so cold towards Gu Miao, did Gu Miao offend her at some point? But since Gu Miao is not participating, I don't have to worry about it. Okay, just let me know where you're going tonight. I paused for a moment, and suddenly remembered that Hani and I had not been in touch for several years, and she didn't have my phone number at all. Write down my phone number, or add me on WeChat. As I said this, I pulled out my phone. No need, I have your phone number in WeChat. Hani snorted. What? When did you have my WeChat? I looked at Hani, confused. I swear I never added her, so why would she say she had my WeChat? The plum blossom in the night comes to the window, that's me, Hani said to me. Shit, the plum blossom in the night comes to the window, and it's actually you. Hearing Han Yi's words, I almost jumped up, and the phone I was holding almost fell to the ground. 2 years ago, a female internet friend named the plum blossom in the night comes to the window added me on WeChat. At the time, I saw that it was a girl, so I accepted her request directly. After chatting for a while, I asked her who she was, and she kept telling me that she had added me as a friend by accident, and that we should just be quiet online friends and not know each other's identities. Although I was a little strange, I didn't delete her. In the past 2 years, when we had nothing to do, we would chat for a while. She was very intellectual, and I felt very good about this friend who had inexplicably appeared. Gradually, we became friends who could talk about anything, and whenever I was stressed or had a fight with my boyfriend, I would chat with her for a while. Every time she would listen to me quietly until I finished, and then comfort and encourage me. Over the past few years, I have considered one night plum flowers arrive at the window as a close friend in my online world, and I have told her almost everything. But I never imagined that the close online friend who often chatted with me would actually be Hani. Chapter 16, Peach Blossom Luck. We were both internet users who didn't know each other personally, and we usually got along quite well, so of course I didn't have any qualms about chatting with her about almost anything. I've told her almost everything that's happened to me over the past 2 years, and sometimes I've shared the happy things with her too. Most importantly, I've told her all my little secrets that I couldn't tell anyone else. Anyway, we are just strangers, and we don't know each other, so I don't have any worries when I talk. I even discussed with her what kind of girl I like, saying that I like beautiful women with long legs the most. Just thinking about this, I felt like the sky was about to collapse, and my face suddenly turned red. Why is it you? I covered my face in some pain. Now I am standing in front of Hani, just like I am naked, which makes me feel ashamed and embarrassed. Chen Shang'an, you'd better behave yourself in the future, I know all your secrets. Hani held up his phone and waved it at me, looking smug. The intense sense of shame made me lose the courage to continue facing Hani, so I covered my face and fled in a disheveled manner, with Hani's somewhat smug laughter ringing behind me. I went back to my room and took a cold shower. The cold water helped to reduce the shame I felt. The person I had been chatting with for 2 years, one night of plum blossoms at the window, was actually Hani. This news really shocked me. Over the past 2 years, I had chatted with her about almost everything, even the most personal things. Now I had no privacy at all in front of her, which was really fucked up. Why had Hani added me and chatted with me for so long? What did she want? I couldn't figure out what was going on. The name One Night Plum Blossoms at the Window was a bit interesting. It came from the Tang Dynasty poet Lu Tong's Somewhere in My Thoughts, and one line was One night the plum blossoms bloom, suddenly at the window I suspected is you. Hani chose this name, so she obviously had someone in mind. Could it be that this someone in mind is me? I raised my hand and slapped myself twice. What the hell was I thinking? She is the school beauty par excellence, and back then, I don't know how many guys were after her. Now she is even more outstanding, so how could she possibly fancy me? I stopped my rambling thoughts, got out of the shower, got dressed, and then prepared to go to the Yuntian Club. In fact, it doesn't matter whether I come here in the morning or not, because I only have one guest, Zhu Yeqing. And Zhu Yeqing usually comes here every day at around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so I don't need to come at other times. But after all, I feel really bad about taking someone else's 20,000 yuan a month, so I usually come to the club during the day to help with some chores. The club is not too far from where I live, and I'm in no hurry, so I don't take a taxi, but walk there. When I arrive at the overpass, there are quite a few people squatting or sitting on both sides, mostly elderly people, with a cloth spread out at their feet, telling fortunes. I don't believe in any of that stuff at all. I've always felt that people need to take control of their own destiny, and if those fortune tellers were really capable, they wouldn't need to squat on the flyover every day. So when I saw these fortune tellers, I didn't even think about stopping. "Young man, please stop." Just then, a voice suddenly sounded behind me. I looked back and saw a man standing behind me, about 45 or 60 years old. The man was just over 1.6 meters tall, thin and slightly stooped, making him look like a rat that had just crawled out of a sewer. He had triangular eyes, yellow teeth, a smile full of wrinkles, and an extremely greasy center parting. The whole person looked extremely uncomfortable, and his appearance was exactly the same as Captain Jia in Underground Transportation Station, and he was extremely wretched. No, he's even more wretched than Captain Jia. I looked at his face, which made you want to punch it, and couldn't help but marvel at the wonders of the Creator, who really does create all kinds of people. "What do you want?" I asked him, holding back my physical and mental discomfort. "Young man, I can see that you're in a dark place, and I'm afraid that you've recently encountered some kind of problem. And since the dark energy is in your internal organs, it must be a problem at home, isn't it?" I froze for a moment when I heard what he said, a little surprised that this guy, who had grown up to be such a scoundrel, was actually a fortune teller. What was even more surprising was that what he said was quite accurate. But when I saw the cunning in his triangular eyes, I immediately understood what was going on. These fortune tellers are all experts, seeing countless people every day, and they often try to bluff their customers. If they can bluff them, great, if not, no problem. This guy was obviously bluffing me. "You're wrong, there's nothing wrong at home." I smiled at him. "That's not right, I can't be wrong, there must be a problem at home." He looked at me and pretended to be deep in thought, stroking his chin. I knew that his hesitation just now had given him a clue, and he was still trying to bluff me. I smiled and said, "Okay, even if you were right just now, this doesn't count. Tell me what else you saw. If you're right, I'll willingly pay you." "Young man, don't be impatient. Let me take a good look at your face again." Hearing my words, he suddenly perked up, and his narrow eyes kept scanning my face. "Okay, what did you see? Hurry up and tell me, or I'm leaving," I said impatiently. "Little brother, don't look at me, I may not look good, but I'm definitely not a liar. No matter what, you have to remember that you can't judge a book by its cover, and that strange people have strange appearances. Okay, are you going to tell me or not? If you don't tell me, I'm leaving." Seeing that he was about to start talking nonsense again, I raised my foot and was about to leave. The guy grabbed my sleeve and quickly said, "I can see that you're having good luck with the ladies recently. The red star is moving above your destiny palace, and I'm afraid it's not just a little luck." Luck with the ladies. Hearing his words, I was stunned. Although I've been unlucky recently, I've inexplicably met several women, Zhu Mu Xiaowan, and Hani. And it seems that there is some kind of entanglement between these three women and me, no matter how minor. Could it be that this guy is really a master, and he can even see this? "What else have you noticed?" I asked him. "One red apricot tree has gone, and 3 peach blossoms have bloomed. Little brother, if I'm not mistaken, you should have 3 parts of good fortune right now." Holy cow, a master. I looked at the lecherous face of that guy, and my heart was suddenly shocked. Chapter 17, Good Fortune in the Midst of Calamity. A red apricot tree bears 1 branch, and that branch grows over the wall. Isn't that what they say about Gumiao? 3 peach blossoms, which just so happen to correspond to the 3 women I've recently encountered, Zhu Mu Xiaowan, and Hani. Holy shit, is this guy really a high-level person? I took another long look at his lecherous face, and apart from the urge to vomit, I couldn't see the slightest hint of a high-level person. "What else did you notice?" I continued to ask him, wanting to test the depth of this master. "I can see that apart from the peach blossom on your face, you also have the appearance of a prominent figure, which indicates that your luck is about to change, and your future destiny is bound to be extraordinary." He shook his head while speaking, with an inscrutable look on his face. I knew that apart from that, he couldn't say anything else, and the face reading was over. "Yes, what you said was very helpful, but unfortunately, I don't have any cash on me, so I'm afraid I can't pay you." I smiled at him and prepared to leave. Unexpectedly, the guy stopped me, laughed twice, took out his phone, and opened the QR code for payment. "No problem if you don't have cash, I can accept payment via QR code." I froze for a moment, not expecting this guy to be so well prepared. After some bargaining with this guy, I finally paid the fortune-telling fee of 100 yuan. Since this guy's image was really bad, I didn't want to chat with him much, so I paid and left. What I didn't know was that the guy had been standing on the overpass the whole time, watching my back until I could no longer see my figure. He frowned and muttered to himself, "There is good fortune in the red dust disaster. This child is outstanding and will certainly be extraordinary in the future. I will not be wrong with my Qinggu technique." But then he gave his thigh a heavy slap. Damn it, I should have learned more from that old blind man back then. Now, although I can see that he has a bright future, I can't see where his fortune lies in the future. A moment later, he smiled and continued, "Our encounter today is destined to be fateful for us. Maybe we'll see each other again in the future, and maybe the turning point for my brothers and I will be with this person." Of course, I didn't know that the guy had been watching me leave like a lovesick girl, but I did have some thoughts about what he had said. Although he didn't look like much, the fortune-telling I got today still surprised me a little. Could it really be true what he said, that I've got good luck with women? The 3 women standing next to me now, Zhu cold and aloof, Mu Xiaowan, young and beautiful, and Hani, pretty and intelligent, all of them are a little too good for me. Could it be that there really is something between them and me? But this thought only flashed through my mind. That guy doesn't look like a proper fortune teller, and even if he was, I don't believe in this stuff. I'm a divorced man now, with nothing, not even a proper job. Not to mention Zhu Yeqing, I wouldn't even dare think about having a future with Mu Xiaowan and Hani. That guy must be full of crap. And what about the appearance of a brilliant young man? My luck is about to change in the next few days, but I don't even know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I've already decided in my heart that the guy is full of shit and I feel bad about my $100. When I arrived at the club, Sister Lan was in the lobby, so I greeted her. Over the past few days, I could see that Sister Lan is a very serious person. Almost everyone in the club is afraid of her, and she is very strict with everyone, except for me. Every time she saw me, a gentle smile would bloom on her still attractive face, which was completely different from the way she treated other people. I knew very well that it wasn't because of my face, but entirely because of Zhu Yeqing. Zhu Yeqing was the real boss here, and now she had chosen me for some reason. Sister Lan was a smart person and of course wouldn't offend me. I spent the afternoon doing nothing at the club. Zhu Yeqing usually asked me to give her a massage every afternoon. Sure enough, around 4 o'clock, Sister Lan pushed the door open and walked in, smiling and saying to me, "My VIP guest is waiting for me in room 209. I gathered the things I needed for the massage and went to room 209. Zhu Yeqing had already finished her bath and was lying on the massage table. When she saw me come in, she said indifferently, "Let's get started." I walked over, sat down in front of her, and placed my hands on her back. I couldn't help but tremble slightly. Although she is beautiful enough to be called a demon, I was able to remain calm when facing her before, when I didn't know her identity. But today, I already know that she is the beautiful snake that the people of Hangzhou are talking about. Thinking about the various legends about her that have been interpreted, it is really a little hard to calm down when facing her now. I tried my best to remain calm and finished the full massage for her. "Are you troubled today?" I used the bath towel to cover Zhu Yeqing's back again, which could be considered perfect, and she asked as she tilted her head and looked at me. Those eyes seemed to be able to see the deepest secrets of my heart. I didn't expect this woman to be so sensitive, which made me feel a little nervous. "I know who you are, President Zhu." I didn't hide it from her and said directly. "Oh, so you know, no wonder." Zhu Yeqing gave a faint smile, wrapped herself in a bath towel and sat up, her two perfect, flawless legs hanging down. I almost used up all my strength to control myself from looking at those legs. She was too beautiful, and I was afraid that if I looked at them too much, I would lose control and do something bad, because along with her charm was also danger. She was a strong woman, and she also had the capital to be strong. Such a woman was someone I could never afford to offend. "Knowing my identity, what do you think?" Zhu Yeqing looked at me and asked lightly. "I can't figure it out." "Why did you choose me?" I took a deep breath and asked the question that had always puzzled me. Zhu Yeqing and I had never met before. A woman like her, if she wanted to, I don't know how many outstanding men would willingly fall at her feet. But why did she choose me to be her personal masseur? Zhu Yeqing didn't answer me, but instead looked at me quietly. She picked up a lady's cigarette, held it between her slender fingers, placed it on her scarlet lips, lit it, and exhaled a gentle puff of smoke. The smoke enveloped her, as if casting a mysterious veil over her face that was enough to ruin a country and bring disaster to its people. It also added a layer of beauty to her, as if a beauty were half veiled. Chapter 18, He became a gigolo. Zhu Yeqing exhaled a puff of smoke and said lightly, "Don't get any ideas. I chose you for my own reasons, but I don't want to tell you." I smiled bitterly when I heard her words. Since Zhu Yeqing had said that, there was no point in me asking any further. "Then I'll take my leave, President Zhu." I packed my things and walked towards the door. "Remember, you and I are just a masseuse and customer. There are some things I hope you won't think too much about, it's for your own good." I opened the door and heard Zhu Yeqing's faint voice behind me. I nodded and didn't say anything, I just walked out. Zhu Yeqing's words were very clear, and they were kind of a warning. She had made it clear that my relationship with her was just that of masseuse and customer, so she told me not to think anything else. There are countless people like Zhu Yeqing, who want to get close to her and gain some benefit from her. She was warning me not to have such thoughts. I am a person with a lot of pressure in my heart. Although I did have some thoughts in my heart, I would never beg her to give me any benefits. This would make me look cheap in front of her. People in high positions like them value an equal exchange of value. To her, I am just a masseur. If I want to get something from her, I must have enough qualifications to trade. She will never let me get something beyond my ability just because I have massaged her a few times. I know very well that there is no such thing as free love or free giving in this world. Today's service is over, and I no longer need to stay in the club. I just changed my clothes in the lounge when Hani's message came. She sent me the location of the hotel and told me that I had to be there before 6:30. I smiled wryly as I read Hani's commanding message. Now that she had all my secrets, I really couldn't afford to offend this formidable woman. As I walked out of the club, I happened to run into Zhu Yecheng's bodyguard, a burly man with a bald head tattooed with a peony flower. When he saw me, he smiled and nodded at me, and I quickly nodded politely back. The man passed me by without saying anything. His image gave off an absolute sense of oppression, and it was estimated that most people would find it difficult to remain calm in his presence. However, I had met him a few times before, and like Zhu Yecheng, he seemed to have an inexplicable kindness towards me. What was going on? I couldn't figure it out, and I wondered what it was about me that they valued so much. Hani sent another message saying that everyone was already there and that I should hurry. I took a taxi and went straight to the hotel. Inside the private room, there were already 8 or 9 of my classmates from back then, and they were all people I usually got along with. As soon as I walked in, everyone started exchanging warm greetings, and naturally Hani became the focus of the party. She was originally the school's beauty queen, and she was also very good at her studies. After graduating, she went abroad to work, and now that she has returned to China, she has become a manager. She is considered to be one of the best among our classmates. At the table, everyone kept praising Hani. By the way, Chang'an, why didn't Gu Miao come today? One classmate looked at me and asked curiously. I smiled awkwardly, and Hani also turned to look at me, her eyes full of concern. She's busy at work and has to work overtime today, so she didn't come. I pretended to be carefree and smiled. What kind of important work is it that she can't even attend a reunion with her old classmates? Chang'an, you're really something, going out and having a good time yourself while letting your wife work overtime. Someone teased with a smile. I smiled and didn't say anything. After all, none of them knew about my divorce from Gu Miao. Alright, everyone, let's drink. After dinner, shall we go sing a couple of songs? Hani nonchalantly changed the subject. Hearing Hani's suggestion, everyone immediately became interested and started discussing which karaoke had good sound effects and which had clean private rooms. I glanced at Hani and nodded at her, thanking her for saving me. Hani smiled at me, her smile as bright as a flower. Oh, everyone is here, it's so lively, why didn't you call me? Just as everyone was talking with their heads bowed, the door to the private room suddenly opened and a man and a woman walked in. It was none other than Gu Miao and her adulterer, Luan. I didn't expect Gu Miao to show up here, and she was even with that Luan. Looking at the two of them, the anger in my heart suddenly welled up. Hani on the side looked at Gu Miao, also full of surprise. Oh, it's Gu Miao. Sit. Just now, this Chang'an guy said you were working overtime, and I didn't think you'd actually come. Someone quickly got up and tried to give Gu Miao his seat. But he was pulled back by the person next to him. Now everyone could see that something was wrong. Because Gu Miao had come in with another man, and my expression made it obvious that there was a problem, unless you were blind. The man who had just stood up to give his seat to her sat down sulkily, and for a moment the entire compartment fell silent. Gu Miao, why are you here? Hani broke the silence and asked Gu Miao. Hani, we were old classmates, and it's been a few years since we last saw each other, but you organized a class reunion and didn't even invite me, that's really not cool. Gu Miao said this while smiling at Hani, except that the smile carried a hint of meanness. Gu Miao, who is this? Someone spoke up, asking who the man next to Gu Miao was. Gu Miao smiled, put her arm around Luan's arm, and was full of happiness. He is my husband, Luan, who specially accompanied me today. Everyone should take good care of him. What, he is your husband, then? At that moment, everyone looked at me, full of disbelief. Feeling everyone's gaze, I felt as if countless slaps had been dealt to my face, filling my chest with rage and making it difficult to breathe. I divorced him, didn't Chen Chang'an tell you? Gu Miao said, pretending to be shocked. You actually got divorced, when did it happen? Everyone started asking in a flurry. Enough, you still have the face to come here. I could no longer control my anger, and yelled at the adulterous couple. Chen Chang'an, shut up. You're the one who shouldn't be here. Gu Miao turned to the group and said with a sneer, you all don't know yet, but your good friend, this good-for-nothing Chen Chang'an, is now a gigolo. Chapter 19, The Traitor by Yi Qing's Side. What? What did you say, Gu Miao? Chen Chang'an is a gigolo? What kind of gigolo? A roast duck gigolo? Are you stupid? Roast duck? What kind of gigolo are you talking about? As soon as Gu Miao spoke, everyone looked at me, and there was a murmur. Hani also looked at me, with a complex expression on his face, not believing it, but also confused. Gu Miao was leaning on Luan, and the two of them looked at me with a smug expression. I knew very well that it was this bitch Gu Miao who had deliberately come here to humiliate me. Shut the fuck up, you bitch. I yelled at Gu Miao. How dare you scold me, Chun Chang'an? Do you think I don't know about all the shitty things you've done? You work at the Yun Tian Club right now, where you're a gigolo. Don't you dare admit it. Gu Miao pointed at me with her mean words, and Luan, who was standing next to her, also had a sneer on his face. Everyone knows what the Yun Tian Club is. My cousin often goes there, and I've already asked him to find out all about you. You work there as a male PR. Luan looked at me with a sneer, condescendingly, with an expression of victory. These two bitches are investigating me. I took a deep breath. I never expected Luan and Gu Miao to secretly investigate me. They must have been so humiliated by Zhu Yeqing that day that they wanted to find out what was going on, so they investigated me. The Yun Tian Club is known throughout Hangzhou. It's not a decent place. Every day, I don't know how many rich men and women go there to find pleasure. It's almost an open secret in the whole city. And I work there, so it's hard not to make people think more. That's bullshit. You're the one fucking the gigolos, the male prostitutes, I yelled at Luan in anger. Oh, you're not a gigolo, then do you dare tell everyone what kind of work you do there? As soon as I finished speaking, Gu Miao spoke with a sneer on her face. I looked at her angrily. They must have investigated everything about me at Yun Tian if they came here today. I'm a masseur, not a gigolo. But no one will believe it if I tell them. I looked at Gu Miao angrily, and for a moment I froze, not knowing how to explain it. What, you have nothing to say? You are a gigolo. Luckily I divorced you, or else you might have given me some disease. Gu Miao looked disgusted. Seeing me silent, the surrounding students looked at me with mixed emotions. Why didn't Chun Chang'an say anything? Could it be that Gu Miao was right? Doesn't he have a proper job? How could he be a gigolo? Gu Miao used to be his wife, so what she says can't be wrong. Look, he's got nothing to say now, so I guess she's right. Oh, no, how could Chun Chang'an be a gigolo? It's a real shame to have been his classmate. If this gets out, people won't be able to stop laughing. The sound of the surrounding discussions kept entering my ears, and the looks people around me gave me felt like slaps in my face. I felt a roar in my ears, and I couldn't hear anything. I was now like a robot, numb. I just wanted to leave this place, the sooner the better. I didn't look at their stares, and walked straight towards the door. Someone behind me called my name, but I didn't pay any attention and rushed out of the hotel in one go. Outside, under the night sky, it had started raining at some point. I looked up and let the cold rain hit my face. The cold feeling made the shame in my heart ease a little, and it also let my suffocating heart exhale a heavy breath. Gu Miao came here today specifically to humiliate me, and she succeeded. In front of all my closest classmates, she mercilessly slapped my face, trampling on the little self-respect I had left. I didn't become a duck, but I knew that no matter what I said, no one would believe me in that situation. Gu Miao knew this very well, which is why she was so successful. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't know it would turn out like this today. At this moment, a voice sounded behind me. It was Hani. I turned around and saw Hani standing behind me, standing in the rain with me, her hair already drenched. It's not your fault. I smiled at her, but I knew that smile must have been even uglier than crying. I drove here, let's go back. Hani said, raising her hand to grab my arm. No need. I took a step back and broke free of her grasp. I want to be alone right now, just by myself. I said to her in a calm voice. Today was the biggest humiliation I have ever suffered in my life, and I really need to be alone and calm down. At least for now, I don't want to be around someone. You? What are you going to do? Don't do anything rash. Hani looked at me, his eyes full of worry. Don't worry, I'm not a child, I won't do anything stupid. Don't follow me, let me be alone. I said, turned around, waved my hand at Hani's back, and walked towards the street in the rain. In the heavy rain, I was drenched and looked miserable. Chan Chang'an. Hani called out to me from behind. What else is there? I turned around and asked her. Hani bit her lip, stood in the rain for more than 10 seconds, and finally asked me, "Is what Gu Miao said today true?" Hearing her words, I laughed. It turns out that she doesn't believe me either, and she also thinks that I'm a gigolo. I looked up at the sky, laughed a few times, then gazed at Hani and solemnly told her, "I don't care what you think, I just want to tell you that I, Chen Xiangyan, will starve to death before I become a gigolo." After I finished speaking, I turned around without hesitation and left. "I believe you." Han Yi's voice came from behind me. Only this time, I didn't turn back. Like a zombie, I turned in front of me and walked into a dark intersection. I walked alone in the rain, and the rain had already soaked me to the skin. There was not a single pedestrian on the cold street, only the occasional passing car splashing a sheet of water. I just walked aimlessly like this, not knowing where I should go, nor did I ever think about where I wanted to go. I just really wanted to be alone and quiet, to walk alone. I don't know how long I walked for, the rain had already stopped, and I walked carelessly and sat down on a wet seat. Thinking about the humiliation that Gu Miao and Luan had inflicted on me at the hotel, the way my classmates looked at me, and their comments, I smiled bitterly, reached into my pocket and felt for a cigarette. I really wanted a cigarette right now. Unfortunately, after walking in the rain for so long, my cigarette had been completely soaked. I looked around and saw a black car parked not far from the road. The driver's side window was open, and the driver was smoking. He was a middle-aged man in his 40s. I stood up and walked towards him, wanting to borrow a cigarette. But before I could get there, another black car drove up and pulled up next to it. "Did you bring it?" The black car that had just arrived asked the other one through the open window. "I brought it. This is the bidding document for the Jinding Group's Qingxi project." At the beginning, the middle-aged man took out a paper bag and threw it into the newcomer's car. "Well done. If we win the bid for the Qingxi project this time, the capital city will arrange a villa for you," the man in the new black car said indifferently. "Thank you, Mr. Zhao, if you need me in the future, just let me know." The two men nodded, then started their cars and left in opposite directions. As the car passed me, the man in the car glanced at me, but didn't pay much attention. Now I am drenched and standing alone on the roadside, looking like a homeless tramp. Who would care about a tramp? Just staring in the direction the black car left, my heart was in turmoil. Jinding Group, isn't that Zhu Yeqing's company? The middle-aged man just now is a trader in Zhu Yeqing's company, selling the company's bidding proposal. Chapter 20, The Flight Attendant's Request. The trader in Zhu Yeqing's company is selling the secrets of her company. There is a municipal development project covering hundreds of acres in the west of Hangzhou. I know about this. There are only a handful of groups in the entire city of Hangzhou that are qualified to compete for this project. However, those who are qualified to compete for this project are also well-known figures in Hangzhou, at least in terms of status they are on an equal footing with Zhu Yeqing. This project is said to have an investment of over 10 billion, which is a big piece of the pie, so I don't know how fierce the competition is behind the scenes. Someone cultivated a trader in Zhu Yeqing's company and obtained their internal bidding proposal, which was a fatal blow to Zhu Yeqing. Looking at the tail of the departing car, I felt my cold body gradually becoming warm. There is a trader in Zhu Yeqing's company, and the fact that this trader was able to obtain her company's bidding proposal shows that he has a certain amount of power in the company and is most likely the manager of a certain department. Having someone like this in the company would be a great loss for Zhu Yeqing. What would happen if I could help her find this trader? I recalled the appearance of the middle-aged man, vowing that I would never make a mistake. At this moment, I became a little excited. People like Zhu Yeqing, who are high above others, would never give charity to others. In their world, everything is exchanged equally. In other words, if you want something from her, you must have the capital to get it. What can a potential trader in the company's upper echelons gain by defecting? I don't know what I can gain, but I'm sure it won't let me continue working as a masseuse. My marriage to Gu Miao and today's humiliation all stem from my lack of strength. I now have only one thought in my mind, and that is to climb up the social ladder and become someone. One day, I will make them pay back all the humiliation I have suffered today. I clenched my fists. I knew that what I had seen today was an opportunity to get in touch with high society. The Zhaozong mentioned by the trader should be Zhao Sihai of the Hangzhou Sihai Group, if I'm not mistaken. The Sihai Group is the largest and wealthiest company in Hangzhou, and Zhao Sihai is also the only person in the entire city who doesn't buy Zhu Yeqing's debt. It is said that 3 years ago, at a cocktail party, Zhao Sihai got drunk and once publicly said that one day he would definitely get the woman Zhu Yeqing into his bed. Unfortunately, early the next morning, someone found Zhao Sihai by the roadside, with a sack over his head, dumped on the roadside, beaten to a pulp, and no one knew who did it. Since then, Zhao Sihai has never dared to say a word about Zhu Yeqing in public. However, anyone with a brain knows that Zhu Yeqing had someone do it. But Zhao Sihai had no evidence, so there was no way he could openly confront Zhu Yeqing. However, the two had a grudge against each other from then on. This time, Zhao Sihai bribed someone close to Zhu Yeqing, obviously to bring down Zhu Yeqing. Through a series of unfortunate circumstances, I actually ran into him. I knew that this was my chance, and I must seize it. I looked at the time, it was already past 1 a.m. I took out my phone and called a taxi, asking to go directly back to where I lived. Standing at the door, I just used the access card to open the door, and before I could go into the room, the door to the room next door opened, and Hani stood in the doorway, looking at me with a worried expression. "You're back?" Hani obviously let out a sigh of relief when she saw me. I nodded at her. "I'm sorry about what happened today, it wasn't me who informed Gu Miao, it was someone who posted it on WeChat Moments and she saw it, so..." Hani carefully explained to me. "It's fine, you had nothing to do with it," I told Hani. "Are you still feeling bad?" Hani asked me carefully. "I'm fine now, don't worry." I smiled at her. Hani nodded. "You came back so late, I was worried sick." "You're all wet, go take a hot shower quickly, and take some cold medicine before going to bed, be careful not to catch a cold." This was the first time I realized that you can be so chatty and like an old woman. I laughed and played a little joke on her. Hani puffed up her mouth and said angrily, "You're the old woman." A little joke instantly dissolved the awkwardness between us. "So I'm going to take a shower?" I said to Hani. She nodded, and I walked directly into the room. Just as I was about to close the door, Hani's voice rang out again, "Chen Chang'an, I believe Yuan would never do that kind of work." I turned around, smiled at her, nodded, and said, "Thank you. It's getting late, so you should get some rest." Hani nodded, walked towards her room. I closed the door, took off my clothes, walked to the bathroom, stood under the shower, and long since no longer felt the anger I felt when I was humiliated by Gu Miao. I was now thinking about only one question, and that was what today's secret could get me from Zhu Yeqing. The world is a fair place. If you are willing to work hard, you will be rewarded. At the same time, the world is also unfair, because the chances of an ordinary person becoming a dignitary are almost zero. It's not that you're not capable, but there is an invisible barrier between each class, and people live their lives spinning in their own circles. The old farmers in the countryside meet every day to discuss how to plant the land well, how to fertilize it, and when to water it in order to harvest more food. But there is a cruel reality: no matter how well you grow your crops, you will always just be a farmer. Every social class is basically fixed, and it is almost impossible for an ordinary person to jump from one class to another by their own strength. I am an ordinary person, and Zhu Yeqing is the upper class of Hangzhou's dignitaries and nobles. Originally, there would be no intersection between her and me, let alone the idea that I could get any help from her. But now it's different. I was able to help her find the traitor in the company, which means that I have an opportunity to make a trade with him. I was so excited that I hardly slept at night. In the morning, I had just fallen asleep when there was a loud banging on the door. The noise scared me so much that I jumped up, almost thinking that the house was being demolished. "Who the hell is it?" I yelled with a bad mood. "Open the door, you rascal." A beautiful girl's voice sounded at the door. It was Mu Xiaowan, who lived across from me. It turned out to be this auntie. I gave a bitter smile, quickly got up from the bed, walked to the door and opened it. Mu Xiaowan was standing in the doorway, wearing a well-fitting flight attendant uniform and holding a suitcase. Seeing Mu Xiaowan in a flight attendant uniform, I froze for a moment and couldn't help but take a few more looks at her long, white legs. Mu Xiaowan was already a very pretty girl, and her figure was also beautiful. Now she was wearing a flight attendant uniform, which made her look even more energetic. This uniform in particular inadvertently fulfills a certain fantasy that men have about beautiful women in uniforms. "Does it look good?" Mu Xiaowan asked, smiling at me. "It looks good, it looks good, it looks so good." I answered subconsciously, while also taking 2 more looks at Mu Xiaowan's thighs. "Humph, I was right, you are a complete pervert." Mu Xiaowan snorted, pointing her finger at my forehead and saying menacingly, "Big sister, you are beautiful, why don't you let people look at you?" I felt a little helpless. Humph, you know how to talk, I forgive you for your disrespect. Mu Xiaowan crossed her arms and looked down on me. By the way, I saw you talking to the woman next door yesterday, do you know each other? Mu Xiaowan stared at me, as if interrogating a criminal. Yes, we were college classmates. I explained to her with a bitter smile. What? She was your college classmate? You horny guy knew she lived here before you came, didn't you? Mu Xiaowan looked me up and down. Big sister, we've spent 2 nights alone together, and I never touched you. You kept calling me a horny guy. Don't you have a conscience? I always feel a bit helpless when dealing with this woman, Mu Xiaowan. Humph, you're the big sister, and your whole family is the big sister. Obviously, Mu Xiaowan was a bit unhappy with me calling her big sister. Fine, I admit defeat. What do you want, old lady? I quickly begged for mercy. I'm going out, I'll be back in a week. Mu Xiaowan said to me, pulling her suitcase. I wasn't surprised. As a flight attendant, she had to work, of course, but I just didn't know where she was flying to this time. So what did you want with me? I asked her curiously. Mu Xiaowan took out an access card and threw it at me. I reached out and took it, looking at her blankly. This is the access card to my room. I bought some flowers a couple of days ago. This time when I go out, you take care of them for me. If you let them die, I'll come back and get you. Mu Xiaowan said, raising her fist at me in a threatening manner. Is that all? I asked Mu Xiaowan. She nodded. I was a little between laughter and tears. She almost broke down my door in the morning. This old woman just wanted me to take care of her flowers for her. Couldn't she have just called or WeChat me? No, I don't seem to have her phone number or WeChat. Come on, add me on WeChat and report to me whenever there's something. Mu Xiaowan said, took out her phone, showed the QR code, and said to me. I quickly scanned the code and added her. Mu Xiaowan shook her phone and said to me, remember, report to me every day, don't be lazy. Okay, I know, your words are orders, I definitely dare not disobey. I quickly said to her. Just then, the door next to us opened and Hani walked out, looking at Mu Xiaowan and me with a strange expression on his face. Chapter 21, A Woman with an Overwhelming Sense of Pressure. You're awake? Hani glanced at me and then smiled at Mu Xiaowan. Hello. Mu Xiaowan also smiled at Hani. I heard that you are his classmate, and we will all be neighbors in the future. Nice to meet you. Mu Xiaowan said, extending her hand. Hani also extended his hand and shook it with her generously. After releasing his hand, Mu Xiaowan took the suitcase and said to me, I'm leaving, remember to take good care of it, or else I'll see how I can fix you when I come back. Mu Xiaowan waved her fist at me. Hani was right next to me, and at this moment I was extremely embarrassed, so I said to her, you hurry up and go, old woman. Mu Xiaowan snorted, pulled the suitcase, and walked into the elevator. You seem to have a good relationship with her. Hani said to me with a faint smile as she watched Mu Xiaowan leave. I felt uncomfortable as she stared at me, and I said with a dry laugh, we're really just ordinary friends, ordinary friends. Oomph, ordinary friends can give you the key to her house? Hani pointed at the access card in my hand. I gave a bitter smile and knew that this was probably difficult to explain, but I was afraid that Hani really had the wrong idea, so I felt that I should explain. Listen to my explanation, things are not what you think they are. Sorry, I don't have time to listen to your explanation. I have to go to work soon, and you don't need to explain to me. Hani finished speaking and turned around and left directly. Today, she was wearing a professional suit. Her black skirt revealed her long, round legs wrapped in black silk, and she was wearing a pair of slender black high heels. The high heels made a crisp sound on the ground, and her graceful figure swayed with her steps, making her back look full of endless temptation. I looked at her back and was transfixed for a moment. Hani walked to the elevator, turned around and looked at me, noticing that I was staring at her. She blushed. What are you looking at? At you, you're just too good looking. I blurted out without thinking. No wonder people say you're a lecher, you really are. Hani blushed and gave me a little peck on the cheek. I laughed nervously, thinking to myself that my big mouth is really something, and I need to work on it. I waved goodbye to Hani, went back to my room and slept for a while before going to the Cloud Club in the afternoon. Around 4 o'clock, Sister Lan came again and told me to get ready, saying that Zhu Yeqing was here and waiting for me in room 206. I got ready and walked towards room 206. This time, I was obviously a little excited. I didn't know what I would get in return after telling Zhu Yeqing the secret in a while. In the room, Zhu Yeqing had already finished showering and was lying on the massage table. I went over to her, helped her pull the bath towel off to reveal her almost perfect back, then poured in some massage oil and started to massage her gently. I didn't go straight for the point. As soon as I entered the room, I told her that there was a traitor in the company. I had to keep my cool, otherwise she would look down on me. I massaged her for half an hour, until Zhu Yeqing said it was okay, and I stopped, covering her back with the bath towel again. I didn't leave, however, but sat down in the chair next to her. Zhu Yeqing noticed my unusual behavior and, covering her shoulders with the towel, sat up as well, asking me, "Is there something else?" I tried not to look at her bare shoulders and her legs peeking out from under the towel, and just nodded. "Oh, what is it?" "Tell me," Zhu Yeqing said, taking out a lady's cigarette and lighting it for herself, exhaling a puff of smoke and speaking to me. "President Zhu, is your company bidding on the project in the west of the city?" I asked her after weighing up my tone. "Yes." Zhu Yeqing flicked the ashes off her cigarette. The Jinding Group's bid for the project in the west of the city was public knowledge, and almost the entire city of Hangzhou knew about it, so my words did not take her by surprise. "Your company has a traitor who sold the bidding proposal to Zhao Sihai," I said directly to her. "What did you say?" Upon hearing my words, Zhu Yeqing's brows lightly furrowed, and she was stunned, her fingers holding the cigarette. "Are you serious?" After about 10 seconds, Zhu Yeqing threw the cigarette butt into the ashtray and turned to me and asked. At this time, the shock she had at first was no longer visible on her face, and it was flat, and her emotions were not discernible. "This woman is composed." "Yes, I accidentally saw their transaction last night, but I don't know the man's name. But I'm sure I'll recognize him if I see him," I said to Zhu Yeqing. "Okay, go wait for me at the door," Zhu Yeqing said lightly when she heard what I said. I nodded and went to the door. After less than 5 minutes, Zhu Yeqing, who was already dressed, walked out. She was still wearing the bright red chipa with a high slit, and she was still wearing a pair of red high heels. It is said that she wore this when she got married, except that her husband suddenly died on the night of their wedding. For all these years, Zhu Yeqing has always dressed like this, and she has never changed, no matter when. "Follow me." Zhu Yeqing walked out of the room and said to me. I nodded and followed behind her. Zhu Yeqing's figure was almost perfect. When she walked, her waist twisted like a snake. Especially under the high-cut cheongsam, her slender legs were occasionally revealed, which was simply the greatest temptation to men. Zhu Yeqing is like a beautiful female snake, full of temptation from head to toe, making people want to get close to her. But along with her beauty comes endless danger. If anyone really offended her, they would definitely die without a burial. Zhu Yeqing has stood in Hangzhou for so many years, and I don't know how many men have coveted her beauty and wanted to turn her into a plaything in their beds. But no one has been able to do it. Many of those who had offended her had inexplicably disappeared and never reappeared. It was rumored in Hangzhou that she had thrown them into the Qiantang River to feed the fish. Whether these rumors were true or not, no one in Hangzhou dared to provoke Zhu Yeqing now, and no one would risk their lives to provoke her. I followed Zhu Yeqing out of the club. Zhu Yeqing's car was parked at the entrance, and the bodyguard with peony tattoos on his bald head was sitting in the driver's seat. Seeing us come out, he quickly got out of the car and helped Zhu Yeqing open the back door. Zhu Yeqing got in, and I followed suit, opening the passenger door and getting in. "We're going to the company. I've already informed all department managers that we'll be having a meeting in 10 minutes, Zhu Yeqing said lightly as she sat in the car. The bald bodyguard didn't say anything, just nodded, and then started the car. He drove fast, but very steadily. In about 10 minutes, we pulled up in front of the Jinding Group building. We got into the elevator and the bald bodyguard pressed the button for the top floor. Zhu Yeqing's office and meeting room were on the top floor of the Jinding building. I felt a little nervous as I watched the elevator rise. I knew that in a moment I would be able to identify the traitor in Zhu Yeqing's company. The reason for my nervousness was not because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to recognize him. The image of that man had been deeply imprinted in my mind last night, and I would definitely be able to recognize him the first time I saw him. He was able to get Zhu Yeqing's bidding documents and has some power in the company, so he should be in the meeting room at this time. I'm nervous about what will happen to that guy if I help Zhu Yeqing find the traitor. Zhu Yeqing has a fearsome reputation, and I guess his end will not be good. I sighed, but then it's none of my business. Since he volunteered to be a traitor, he has to take responsibility for his actions. And if I don't find him, how can I have a chance to rise to power? Thinking about this, I clenched my fists and took a deep breath to calm myself down. The elevator doors opened and we arrived at the door of a room. The bald bodyguard opened the door and we entered a magnificent conference room. A dozen people in suits were sitting around a round computer conference table, talking animatedly. "Good day, President Zhu." "Good day, President Zhu." When they saw Zhu Yeqing enter, the group of people immediately fell silent and kept on greeting Zhu Yeqing. Zhu Yeqing didn't say a word, but walked to the seat in the middle and sat down, then gave the group a cold stare. Under her gaze, everyone fell silent, even their breathing became cautious. I stood behind Zhu Yeqing, and this was the first time I felt her majesty. For these people, Zhu Yeqing exuded a sense of oppression. I stared at a middle-aged man sitting in the third seat from Zhu Yeqing's left. I recognized him at a glance. He was the man I saw last night. "President Zhu, you have called everyone here today, what is the purpose?" A middle-aged woman asked Zhu Yeqing carefully. Zhu Yeqing glanced at everyone again and then said indifferently, "The purpose of today's meeting is to find the traitor in the company." "What, a traitor?" Zhu Yeqing's words made everyone in the room freeze, followed by a flurry of discussion. I kept looking at the middle-aged man, taking in his expression. When Zhu Yeqing said he wanted to find the traitor, his face clearly turned panicked, and his eyes were filled with fear. "President Zhu, there is a traitor in our company?" The middle-aged woman asked Zhu Yeqing. It was clear that this woman must be highly regarded by Zhu Yeqing in the company. Yes, someone sold the bidding documents for the company's Qingxi project to the Sihai Group. Zhu Yeqing said, rubbing his forehead with his hand. "What, this? How is this possible?" Everyone in the room was completely shocked. You have to know that Jinding Group has invested almost all of its strength in the Qingxi project. If this project collapses, Jinding Group will definitely not have an easy time in the future. The person who betrayed this project wanted to put Jinding Group in a dead end. Everyone in the office was furiously discussing the matter, except for the middle-aged man, whose face had turned pale and cold sweat had appeared on his head. However, in order to hide his panic, he pretended to be angry with the people around him. Zhu Yeqing glanced back at me. I knew what she meant. She was asking if I had found the traitor. I nodded slightly to tell her that the person was in the room. Zhu Yeqing placed her hand on the conference table and tapped it twice lightly. Everyone in the room suddenly fell silent. Since I have gathered everyone here today, I already know who the traitor is. Now I am giving you one last chance. Come forward voluntarily, and there may still be a way out for you. Zhu Yeqing's tone was flat, and as soon as the words left his mouth, there was complete silence in the meeting room. Everyone glanced at each other, trying to figure out who the traitor was. "I'll count to 3. Zhu Yeqing raised 3 fingers and began counting down. I kept my eyes on the middle-aged man. At this point, he was clearly on the verge of collapse, with cold sweat running down his head and his face pale. However, he still seemed to have a last-ditch attempt in him, and he never stood up until Zhu Yeqing's 3 fingers had completely dropped. "I have already given you a chance, so don't blame me for this." Zhu Yeqing said this while looking back at me. I understood what she meant. She wanted me to point out the traitor. I raised my hand and pointed at the sweating middle-aged man and said to Zhu Yeqing, "That's him. He was the one who traded with Zhao Sihai last night." "What? What are you talking about?" The middle-aged man was like a dying fish, making a last-ditch struggle. But Zhu Yeqing no longer wanted to give him a chance. Nodding to the bald bodyguard on the side, he walked directly up to the middle-aged man and reached down to lift him up, as if he were lifting a small chicken. "Ask him everything he knows, then break her legs and throw her out into the street," Zhu Yeqing said indifferently. Chapter 22, Zhu Yeqing's story. The bald man carried the middle-aged man and ignored his pleas for mercy as he walked straight out, and Zhu Yeqing didn't even look at him. The entire conference room was silent, and no one dared to say a word. Although that person was a colleague of everyone, no one spoke up to plead for him. Zhu Yeqing waved her hand and said, "Go away." Hearing her words, the people in the room immediately stood up and left the conference room carefully. Zhu Yeqing bowed her head, not knowing what to think, while I was thinking about the scene of the man being dragged out just now, and Zhu Yeqing's words. That man will have his legs broken and be thrown out onto the street, and it's all because of me. It was my report that will make him spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. My mood is a bit complicated right now, and I can't put into words what it feels like. Follow me. Just then, Zhu Yeqing stood up and walked towards the other side of the conference room, and I quickly followed behind her. There was a door at the back of the meeting room. Zhu Yeqing stood in front of the door, entered the password, and the door opened. Inside was an office of extreme grandeur. The office floor was covered with carpet, and in front was a huge French window. Standing in front of the window, you could directly see the Qiantang River, not far away, with its rolling waters. This was Zhu Yeqing's office. Zhu Yeqing went behind the desk, sat in her boss's chair, and then tapped her finger, indicating that I should sit in front of her. I walked into the office and sat at the desk. You did well today. He is the manager of our project department and knows a lot of company secrets. I never thought he would be bought off by Zhao Sihai, Zhu Yeqing said to me. I was a little surprised to learn that the man was actually the manager of the project department of Zhu Yeqing's company. No wonder he was able to get hold of the company's bidding plan, as he was in such an important position in the company. If he wasn't uncovered today, the losses that Zhu Yeqing's company would suffer in the future would be immeasurable. I knew very well that I had done Zhu Yeqing a great favor today. You have helped me, and I can give you whatever you want, as long as it is not too much. At this time, Zhu Yeqing turned her head, not looking at me, but looking out the window at the distant Qiantang River, and said lightly. Hearing her words, I couldn't help but clench my fists, and my mood became a little excited. I knew that Zhu Yeqing's repayment was coming. I helped her root out the company's parasites, and her reward to me would not be small. But what do I want? Money? I believe that if I ask, and if my price is not too high, Zhu Yeqing will transfer the money to me without hesitation. But then, Zhu Yeqing and I will be completely even, she will never owe me anything again, and there will be no more emotional ties between us. I have to maximize my own interests. People like Zhu Yeqing are the kind of people that many people would go to great lengths to befriend. I have now done her a favor, so it would be stupid to just take the money and walk away. But if I don't take the money, what else can I ask for? President Zhu, I just happened to stumble upon this matter, and it would be an honor for me to be able to help you, so how dare I ask for anything in return? I thought about it for a moment and spoke up. If I took the initiative to ask Zhu Yeqing for something, of course she would give it to me, but that would be taking advantage, and it would make people look down on me. So I used this tactic of retreating in order to advance, and kicked the ball back to Zhu Yeqing, letting her think about it herself. I've done you such a big favor, what should you give me in return? Upon hearing my words, Zhu Yeqing turned her head back and looked at me again. She just stared at me without saying a word, and I tried my best to remain calm and looked at her calmly. After a while, Zhu Yeqing smiled. She was originally a woman of extreme beauty, and when she smiled, she looked like a peony in full bloom, so beautiful that people didn't dare to look directly at her. You are a smart person, very good, I like dealing with smart people. Zhu Yeqing said with a smile. Thank you for the praise, I said. Originally I was going to let you come to my company, but now I suddenly changed my mind, there is a place that might be more suitable for you. I didn't interrupt, just quietly listened to her continue. There is a bar in Xiaxia called Qingliang Bar, and in the future you will be in charge of it, I only want a 10% profit share. Zhu Yeqing said indifferently. Qingliang Bar. When I heard Zhu Yeqing's words, my heart couldn't help but tighten. Although Xiaxia district is on the outskirts of Hangzhou, it is not that remote, and the turnover of a bar there is also very considerable. Zhu Yeqing would actually hand over a bar to me to manage. But what shocked me the most was not this. The reason why a bar is called this somewhat strange name is because this bar was opened 7 years ago by Zhu Yeqing's husband, Dong Liang. Back then, Dong Liang was just a street thug in Xiaxia, running a bar called Qingliang Bar. Of course, the bar didn't start out with that name. He changed the name after he met Zhu Yeqing, taking one character from each of their names. Back then, Dong Liang didn't have any assets other than the bar. The Xu family, where Zhu Yeqing came from, wasn't considered one of the top families in Hangzhou, but they were wealthy. Even back then, Zhu Yeqing was already known as the most beautiful woman in Hangzhou. Dong Liang, a hooligan, somehow took a fancy to Zhu Yeqing and went to the Zhu family alone to propose marriage. The Xu family, of course, did not want to, and almost beat him out. As a result, Dong Liang took out a knife, slashed himself, and calmed the Zhu family. He let it be known that he would marry no one but Zhu Yeqing, and Zhu Yeqing would have to marry him. He would come to fetch Zhu Yeqing after 3 years. After returning home, he changed the name of the bar to Qingliang Bar, and in just 3 years, he went from being a hooligan to an upstanding member of Hangzhou society, founding the Jinding Group. That day, he went to the Zhu family in person and used hundreds of luxury cars to marry Zhu Yeqing into the family. The wedding almost caused a sensation in half of Hangzhou. What no one could have imagined was that on the night of the wedding, he suddenly died of a sudden stroke. But everyone knew that Dong Liang's death was not that simple. Some even rumored that Zhu Yeqing was born to be a poisonous widow, and whoever slept with him would not die a good death. The rumors about Zhu Yeqing's suspicious character also started at that time. After Dong Liang's death, countless people in Hangzhou coveted his assets and Zhu Yeqing, the pretty widow. No one thought that Zhu Yeqing, a woman, could hold on to Dong Liang's assets. But the result was unexpected for everyone. Not only did Zhu Yeqing hold on to Dong Liang's Jinding group, she made it even bigger than it was in his day. In just 3 years, Zhu Yeqing became a woman no one in Hangzhou would dare to provoke. No one knows what Zhu Yeqing has sacrificed to achieve all this. Now Zhu Yeqing has a lot of assets, and the income from a bar is nothing she cares about. However, she has kept the Qinglian bar. I think it is because she still misses her dead husband. I will not interfere if you take care of the bar. If you can stand there, it is your own ability. If you can't stand there, it is your own incompetence. I will not help you. Zhu Yeqing looked at me and said indifferently. I nodded, knowing what she meant. Although I will take care of the bar, how to continue operating it depends on me, and Zhu Yeqing will not help me. But even so, I'm already very satisfied. The income from a bar is definitely considerable, at least much better than being a masseuse like I am now. Tomorrow I'll have Xiao Hua take you there. As Zhu Yeqing spoke, she leaned back in her chair, her eyes vacant, wondering what she was thinking. Xiao Hua? I froze for a moment. It's that bald guy, his name is Li Xiaohua. Zhu Yeqing said with a smile. Li Xiaohua. Hearing that name, I almost let out a cry. I never would have guessed that the bald, burly man who was 1.9 meters tall would have such a feminine name. The name was such a contrast to his appearance. Zhu Yeqing's gaze looked out the window again, and I knew I should leave. I was just about to stand up and say goodbye to Zhu Yeqing when I inadvertently glanced at her desk. The desk was simply arranged, with only a photo on the front. In the photo, Zhu Yeqing was still wearing a red cheongsam, with a bright red flower in her hair, and she was nestled in the arms of a man, looking blissfully happy. This must be her wedding photo. But the next moment, I stared at the man in the photo and froze in place. The man in the photo was smiling faintly, quietly looking at me, and his face was actually exactly the same as mine. Chapter 23: The Man Who Looks Like Me. The man in the photo actually looks exactly like me. What the hell is going on? I stared at the photo, feeling my breathing become rapid. Whoever it is, suddenly seeing someone who looks exactly like them is probably hard to remain calm. Not to mention the fact that this man took a wedding photo with Zhu Yeqing. I stared at the photo, feeling extremely strange and not knowing what was going on. But upon closer inspection, the man in the photo did not look exactly like me. Although the face looked 90% similar to mine, there was a sharpness in those eyes, like the eyes of an eagle. Zhu Yeqing turned her head and didn't say anything, just looked at me quietly. Who is this? I asked her in a hoarse voice. The man in the photo looked so much like me that I couldn't stay calm. He is my husband, Dong Liang, Zhu Yeqing said indifferently. How is that possible? How is it possible that he looks so much like me? I said incredulously. Zhu Yeqing looked at me, sighed, and then said, I also find it a bit unbelievable that there would be two people in the world who look so much alike. Zhu Yeqing looked at me, and there was something in her eyes that was hard to explain. After the initial shock, I finally recovered and glanced at Zhu Yeqing, and everything became clear. No wonder Sister Lan would take the initiative to let me go to the club. No wonder the only guest I served at the club was Zhu Yeqing. It turned out to be for this reason. It turned out to be because I look like his dead husband. Why do he and I look so similar? Could it be that we have been separated for many years? At this time, my heart couldn't help but flash through the melodramatic scenes that could only be found in movies or novels, thinking about whether I and Dong Liang were long-lost twin brothers. I have already investigated your background. You are not related to him in any way, you just look alike. Zhu Yeqing seemed to know what I was thinking, and said to me in a light tone. There is no relationship, they just look alike. I glanced at Zhu Yeqing, and I was not surprised that she had investigated me. Moreover, I knew very well that with her abilities, it would not be difficult for her to find out if I was related to Dong Liang. So it really is just a matter of physical resemblance. I felt a little dazed, like I was dreaming. How could there be two people in the world who looked so similar? Okay, don't think about it too much. You just look like him, and that doesn't mean anything. At this time, Zhu Yeqing spoke again, but her tone had become a little cold. I calmed myself down and understood the meaning of her words. She was telling me not to think too much because I looked like her dead husband. She was warning me not to think about useless things. I have always been a very pushy person. After hearing her words, I nodded and said, "I'll go first, then." Zhu Yeqing nodded gently and said, "Go to the club tomorrow and wait." I got up and left. Leaving Zhu Yeqing's office, I let out a long breath. The doubts in my heart had finally been answered. It turned out that the inexplicable bond between Zhu Yeqing and I was just because I looked a lot like Dong Liang. I can't believe someone looks so much like me. I shook my head with a bitter smile, still feeling a little unbelievable. In the corridor, a bald man named Li Xiaohua walked over and grinned at me when he saw me. Although his smile looked sincere, the image still made my hair stand on end. I guess that guy just now has already had his legs broken by him. I quickly nodded to him and left Zhu Yeqing's company. Inside the office, Zhu Yeqing stood in front of the French windows, looking at the Qiantang River in the distance, wondering what he was thinking about. Li Xiaohua pushed open the door and closed it gently. Zhu Yeqing turned around and glanced at Li Xiaohua, asking him, "Have you taken care of Lu Qing?" Li Xiaohua raised his hand, touched his bald head, and grinned. It was Zhao Sihai who promised to buy him a villa in Beijing that made him interested. I already broke his leg and had him thrown into the Sihai group. Zhu Yeqing nodded without saying anything else. Zhao Sihai still has designs on you. Shall I teach him a lesson again? Li Xiaohua said with a murderous look on his face. The guy is probably terrified by now. He won't be so easy to find. Let him off this time. Zhu Yeqing said non-committally. What did the little guy order? Li Xiaohua changed the subject and asked Zhu Yeqing with a smile. He didn't order anything. He let me decide. A hint of a smile appeared at the corner of Zhu Yeqing's mouth. Oh, that's interesting, he's a smart guy. Li Xiaohua smiled happily. I've handed over the bar to him, and I'll see if he's got what it takes to take it over. Zhu Yeqing said indifferently. Xu Bo has always been in charge of that bar, so it'll be hard to push him out. Li Xiaohua ran his hands over his bald head and frowned. Then it's not my business. If he can't get the bar, it's because he's incompetent. An incompetent person doesn't deserve my respect. Zhu Yeqing said indifferently. That guy really looks like Dong Liang. I hope he can also be as capable as Dong Liang was back then. Li Xiaohua looked out the window and said lightly. Zhu Yeqing didn't say anything, just slightly frowning imperceptibly. Of course I didn't know what the two of them were talking about me. Walking out of Zhu Yeqing's company, I couldn't help but feel a little excited. Today's mission is considered accomplished. Starting tomorrow, I will no longer be a masseuse, but I will have my own bar. If it were before, I would never have imagined that I would own a bar in Hangzhou. Today may be a turning point in my life. I have a vague feeling that my life from now on may be a little different. I took a taxi and called Hani on the way back to ask if she had finished work yet, and if we could go out for dinner together. Hani said she would finish work soon and asked me to choose a place and send her the location. I thought about it for a while and decided on the entrance to the residential area where we lived. There were a few small restaurants there that looked clean, and the main thing was that they were close to home. When I arrived at the restaurant, I ordered a few dishes first, all of which Hani liked. We had been college classmates for several years, and I still remembered what she liked to eat. As soon as the dishes were served, Hani walked in and her eyes lit up when she saw the food on the table. Ouch, have you struck it rich? Why are you treating me to dinner? Hani said sarcastically. We've been old classmates for years, I shouldn't invite you to dinner. This is all your favorite food, try it and see what you think. I said to Hani with a smile. It's rare that you remember my tastes. Hani glanced at me and sat down. Why, after all these years, an old classmate still remembers your tastes, shouldn't you show a little excitement? I joked with her. How should I show it, do you still want me to fall in love with you? Hani said as if joking. Hearing her words, I froze for a moment, looking at Hani, who also looked at me. Our eyes met, and we both felt a little embarrassed. I saw her face turn slightly red, and she lowered her head a little embarrassed. I was just kidding, don't take it seriously, Hani explained in a low voice. I do take it seriously, I'll go stay at your place today. I deliberately scared her. Chen Shangen, after not seeing you for a few years, you have indeed become a scoundrel. Hani pouted her lips in anger. I laughed out loud and asked her if she wanted to drink. Hani nodded, and I asked her if she wanted white or beer. Hani said she wanted white. I went to the front desk and got a bottle of wine. While drinking, I chatted with Hani. I didn't tell her about what happened to me today, but just listened to her talk about her experiences abroad over the years. Before we knew it, the bottle of white wine had been drunk by the two of us. Hani was already slightly drunk, her cheeks flushed, and her eyes looking at me seemed to have some kind of indescribable expectation. Chapter 24, There's a Man I Like. Hani's drinking capacity is not good, but at least she is much better than that woman Mushawan. After half a gin of wine, although her eyes were a bit wandering, she was not drunk yet. I went to the front desk to settle the bill and walked out of the hotel with Hani. As the lights came on, Hani's snow-white skin looked even more delicate under the dim light. Coupled with a slight redness in her face due to the alcohol, she looked indescribably charming. Chen Chang'an, I feel a little dizzy. As soon as we walked out of the hotel, Hani put a hand to her forehead and frowned gently. If you can't drink, don't drink so much. I sighed helplessly and reached out to support her. Hani seemed to have really drunk too much, and her whole body leaned almost entirely on me. As I supported her, I felt the softness of her body and smelled the fragrance on her, and my heart suddenly felt inexplicably restless. When we arrived upstairs, I helped Hani take out the access card and swiped it to unlock her room. You've had too much to drink, go wash up and go to bed. I helped her into the room, then let go of her hand and said to her. It's still early, why don't you come in and chat for a while? I have some beer at home, have some more. Hani said to me with a smile. Big sister, aren't you drunk? I said. Who says I'm drunk? I can't get drunk with just a little white wine. Hani smiled. You were just pretending. Looking at her, I finally understood that she was not drunk at all and was just pretending. Of course, I had to test you to see if you were really a wolf, and take advantage of me while I was drunk. Very good, you passed the test. Hani looked pleased with herself. While she was talking, she took off her shoes and stepped on the floor with bare feet. Her feet were white and glowing, her toes were slender and long, and her full toenails were dyed a light pink. Her delicate toes seemed to carry 1,000 charms. Come in and sit down, I'll go change first, Hani said, and walked directly into the bedroom. I also walked into the room, closed the door behind me, and sat down on the sofa. Before long, Hani had changed into a loose-fitting white shirt with a very low collar that revealed a large expanse of snow-white skin on her chest. She was wearing a pair of yoga pants underneath that hugged her long, slender thighs and outlined their perfect lines. Seeing her like that, I couldn't help but gasp, thinking to myself, who in the world could resist her? What are you looking at, pervert? Hani was a little embarrassed by my burning gaze, and she gave me a glare with a red face. What, I can't even look at someone who is pretty. I couldn't help but start flirting again. Humph, you know how to talk, I won't hold it against you. Hani snorted, turned around and walked to the refrigerator, opened the door, and asked me, what do you want to drink, beer? I shrugged my shoulders and said, anything is fine. Well, I only have the deadly Dahosu here, hee hee. Hani said, took out 2 bottles of beer and a bag of shelled peanuts. I was a little speechless, thinking to myself that you only have one kind of beer here, so why ask me? Hani took the opener, opened a bottle of beer and handed it to me, opened a bottle for herself, and raised it to touch it with me. Here, take a sip. She said, tilting her head back and taking a big gulp. Aren't you afraid that I'll get drunk and lose control at your place? I didn't drink, so I asked her while holding the bottle. Hani nodded with a serious expression on her face and said, well, alcohol can make you lose control, and it's even more likely when you're with a beautiful woman like me. So why did you let me drink at your place? I felt like my cerebellum had shrunk a little. I'm not worried about it. You have the desire, but I don't think you have the guts. Young man, you have 3 years to think about it. Hani said while gently stroking my cheek with her hand. Shit, she was waiting for me here. I shook my head with a bitter smile and looked at Hani. She blushed again when she was stared at by me and moved back a little bit in fear. What are you going to do, Chen Chang'an? I advise you not to be impulsive. Hani said while covering her chest with her hands. What are you thinking? Do you really think I'm a rascal? I shook my head. Then why are you staring at me? Your eyes are full of malice. Hani didn't believe me at all. I feel like you're different now. I smiled and said to her. How are you different? Hani let down her guard and asked curiously. When I was at school, Hani gave me the impression that apart from being pretty, she was also aloof. At that time, I don't know how many boys chased after her, but there were very few people who could talk to her for a few words. As far as I can remember, Hani has always been an introverted girl who never jokes around with people. But now she seems much more cheerful than before. I feel that your personality is different from before, you've become much more cheerful. I said. Oh, I was wondering what it was. People always change. After so many years, I can't possibly stay the same. Hani said non-committally. Yes, you have changed a lot, and you have also grown up. As I said, I couldn't help but let my eyes rest on Hani's chest. Hani didn't notice at first, but when he saw my gaze, he suddenly became angry and picked up a pillow and threw it at me. You pervert, where are you looking? Hani said angrily. I wasn't looking, I was just daydreaming. I said to Hani as I dodged the flying pillow. Humph, you look like a lecher, I don't believe you. Hani rolled his eyes. Drink, drink. I smiled awkwardly, picked up the bottle and gulped it down. Drinking with a beautiful woman is nice, but it's easy to get distracted and get hot, and I'm talking about inside, hot. By the way, I've noticed that you've become not only cheerful, but also seem to be happy every day. Is something happy happening from time to time, or have you found a man you like? I teased Hani. Hani glanced at me, his expression becoming a little more serious, and nodded at me. What, no way, you really have a man you like? I said to Hani, a little incredulously. Of course. Hani rolled his eyes. Come on, tell me, which guy is so lucky that he can get our Han beauty to look at him? It'd be best to bring out his photo, and I'll help you decide. I said with a smile. Hani stared at me, wondering what I was thinking. I raised my hand and waved it in front of her face twice. Hey, what are you thinking? I asked her. Tell me, which guy is so lucky? Hani lowered her head, her face slightly red. Oh, she's blushing. She really has feelings for him. Tell me who it is, I teased her. Humph, I'm not telling you. Hani turned her head and ignored me. Chapter 25, Only the Clever Survive. Fine, don't tell me, but be careful. There are so many scumbags in society these days, don't let anyone take advantage of you. I said teasingly. Humph, do you think I'm some love-struck little girl? Hani gave me an unhappy look. I laughed. Hani has always been excellent. When she was at school, I don't know how many boys used every means to woo her, but none of them succeeded. I really don't need to worry about that. I'm just concerned about you, I'm afraid you'll meet a bad guy. I said with a smile. But there's a big bad guy in my room right now, and I'm not afraid. Hani said with a smile. I'm different, aren't we old classmates? Even if I wanted to, I couldn't do it because we know each other too well. I said teasingly. Chen Chang'an, what if I said the person I like is you? Hani suddenly looked serious, staring straight at me. I looked directly into Hani's eyes and froze, my brain suddenly shrinking. She likes me? How is this possible? Amongst my classmates, Hani was always the most outstanding one. Although I also thought she was pretty, I never had any other thoughts about her. Because I knew in my heart that I was not good enough for her, I would not be delusional. Thinking too much is easy to get eggsick, I know this truth. So after graduation, I got together with Gu Miao, because I felt that we were a good match. I just didn't expect that in the end, Gu Miao knitted me a green little hat and made me lose face in front of my classmates. It seems like I've gone a bit off track. I shook my head and looked at Hani with disbelief. Are you serious? I tried to ask her. Ha 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 ha. Seeing my incredulous look, Hani suddenly burst out laughing, so much so that she bent over. Don't take it seriously, I was just joking with you. Hani stopped laughing and winked at me, saying. I let out a sigh of relief and gave a bitter smile. It turned out to be a joke, how could she possibly fancy me? But for some reason, I felt an indescribable feeling of emptiness in my heart. We drank 2 bottles of beer. Hani's drinking capacity was really good, and she stayed very sober. Although she didn't drink much, we talked a lot. But most of the time, Hani was talking, and I was quietly being a good listener. Hani seemed to have a desire to confide in someone, and she told me all about her experiences abroad over the past few years. I also knew that she hadn't actually had an easy time over the past few years, and that she had at least made a lot of efforts to succeed. And I also learned a personal secret of hers: she had never been in a relationship, and still hadn't. I looked at Hani strangely, and even suspected in my heart whether she was with Lily. That night we talked late, and I didn't go back to my room until 2 o'clock in the morning. The next morning I didn't get up until after 10, and when I looked at my phone, I saw a message from Hani, saying that she had already gone to work. I got up, washed up, and then went to the door to grab some breakfast on the way to the Yuntian club. Xu Yeqing had said that I should wait for her here today. At a little after 4 p.m., the door to the mechanics' lounge was pushed open. It wasn't Sister Lan who came in, but Li Xiaohua, who had a bald head and tattoos. He smiled at me and told me to follow him. I knew he was taking me to the Qingliang bar in Xiaxia, which Xu Yeqing had promised me yesterday would be mine in the future. When we left the club, Xu Yeqing's SUV was parked at the entrance. Li Xiaohua got into the driver's seat and motioned for me to sit next to him. As soon as I got in, he started the car and drove towards Xiaxia district. You're quite something. After all these years, there are very few people she would take a fancy to. Li Xiaohua turned her head as she drove and smiled at me. I gave a wry smile. I never would have thought that I would have any intersection with Xu Yeqing in my life. What's more, I would never have thought that I would look so much like her dead husband. Fate is really something that is hard to figure out. I looked at the scenery outside the window and couldn't help but feel very emotional. The bar's turnover is not bad, but it's not that easy to get it if you want it. At this time, Li Xiaohua, who was driving, glanced at me and said, "What did he mean? Is there something else about the bar that I don't know? What is the reason for this? Please advise, Brother Xiaohua." I respectfully said to Li Xiaohua, "Someone has been taking care of this bar all along, and that person's name is Zhu Bo." Li Xiaohua turned his head and smiled at me. Zhu Bo. I frowned when I heard this name. It was definitely no coincidence that the family name was the same as Xu Yeqing's. This Zhu Bo is related to the boss? I asked him tentatively. He is also a Zhu family member, but a distant relative, and he is considered the boss's cousin. Li Xiaohua said indifferently. Upon hearing this, I took a secret breath and immediately understood what Li Xiaohua meant. The bar was originally managed by Zhu Bo, so now that I have gone, I am not just taking food from someone else's territory? The main thing is that I'm going to take over the bar and I'm going to squeeze out Zhu Bo. Isn't that a situation of no end until one of us dies, and we are destined to only have one left? Zhu Bo is a Zhu family member, a distant cousin of Xu Yeqing. What do I have to fight him with? Don't worry, although Zhu Bo is General Zhu's cousin, they don't really interact. Just go ahead and do it. And in recent years, the bar's finances have been unclear. Although General Zhu doesn't care, it doesn't mean she's not aware of it. Li Xiaohua said to me. I glanced at Li Xiaohua, and there was a faint smile on his face. I pondered his words. He had revealed two pieces of information to me. Although Zhu Bo also had the surname Zhu, it seemed that his relationship with Xu Yeqing was not close. Another point was that the accounts of the bar over the years had not been clear. Why did Li Xiaohua tell me all this? I pondered for a moment, and immediately understood the meaning. He was telling me that after going to the bar, I didn't need to worry about the relationship between Zhu Bo and Xu Yeqing, and that I could go for it, boldly competing with Zhu Bo. There was also an important reason. Although Xu Yeqing didn't value Zhu Bo, he was still a Zhu after all, so I had to be careful not to be too drastic, as things would not look good for Xu Yeqing if they got out of hand. He said that there were problems with the bar's accounts, which was a veiled way of telling me that if I wanted to squeeze Zhu Bo out, I had to do something about the accounts. The bar's accounts are not clean, and Xu Yeqing will not openly investigate Zhu Bo's accounts for face's sake. Besides, she simply doesn't care about the income of a bar. But if I can find evidence that Zhu Bo has falsified the accounts and reveal it in front of Xu Yeqing, then Zhu Bo will have to go. Thank you, little flower. I sincerely said to Li Xiaohua after figuring out the reason. Li Xiaohua grinned. Not bad, you are a smart person, and only the smart can survive in this world. I hope you can stay smart forever. His gaze looked ahead, as if he had thought of something. Chapter 26, Being Excluded. Although Li Xiaohua had given a hint, I still didn't have a clue as to what to do. Zhu Bo had been running the bar for several years, and this was his territory. I was an outsider, and what could I do to fight him? If I want to find evidence of Zhu Bo's corruption, I have to find the account book. The person in charge of such an important financial task is definitely Zhu Bo himself, so it is almost impossible for me to get the account book. Thinking about this, the initial excitement was gone in an instant. This is simply a hot potato. I knew that it would not be easy to get anything from Zhu Yeqing. She can give it to you, but if you really want it, you have to fight for it yourself. But I'm new here and I'm alone, how can I compete with Zhubo? After about half an hour, the car stopped, right in front of the bar. I got out of the car and glanced at the name of the bar, Green Bridge Bar, this is the place. There was a young man standing at the door wearing a gray suit and with yellow hair, looking like a rascal. When he saw Li Xiaohua get out of the car, he quickly came up to her with a smile on his face. Hello, brother Xiaohua, it's been a long time, you must have a good time here today. He smiled at Li Xiaohua with a face full of flattery, but he didn't even look at me. Li Xiaohua's face was stern. I still have things to do later, I have to leave soon. I hope Mr. Zhu has called you. This is Chen Chang'an, he will be the manager here in the future. Li Xiaohua glanced at me as he spoke. Zhubo then turned back, smiled with a face of leather but no smile, extended his hand, shook hands with me, and said, "Oh, brother Chen, hello, hello." I also shook hands with him lightly, smiling and exchanging pleasantries. Okay, I brought the person, you can get to know each other better, I have to go back. Li Xiaohua said and opened the car door. Brother Xiaohua, why are you in such a hurry? I've arranged everything, just have some fun. Zhubo quickly tried to persuade Li Xiaohua to stay. No thanks. Li Xiaohua seemed to dislike this seemingly unscrupulous guy a bit, and without saying anything to him, she got straight into the car and took off with the accelerator. Zhubo looked at the rear of the car and froze for a moment. The displeasure on his face disappeared in an instant, and he immediately turned his head and looked at me with a smile on his face. However, no matter how you looked at it, the smile on this guy's face was very fake. Brother Chen, I knew you were coming, so I've been waiting at the door for a long time. Hurry, go inside. I've already had someone help you clean up the office. Zhubo said to me with a fake smile. I nodded to him and then walked into the bar with him. Although the bar looked a bit old from the outside, the interior decoration was quite good. There were about 20 to 30 booths and some more upscale private rooms. I originally wanted to take a look first, but Zhubo didn't seem to want to show me anything. He smiled and said to me, Brother Chen, your office is on the 3rd floor, why don't you go take a look first? I nodded and went up to the 3rd floor with him. However, as soon as we got there, Zhubo's phone rang. He answered it, told the person on the other end that he would be right down, and hung up. Brother Chen, I still have some things to take care of. Your office is the one at the end, so I won't go in with you, Zhubo said with a forced smile. You go ahead, I'll go in by myself. I nodded at him. Zhubo smiled, turned around and walked down the stairs. I went to the room at the end of the corridor and pushed open the door. As soon as I opened the door, a strong smell of damp and mold hit my nose. The room was very small, with just a desk, an office chair and a sofa, and nothing else. The walls of the whole room were stained and in a sorry state, with the plaster peeling off in many places. This is no fucking office, it's clearly just a utility room, except that they've moved the stuff out and given me a desk. Looking at the room, I frowned. Although I had an urge to curse, it wasn't enough to make me angry. I had prepared myself mentally in the car. After all, I came here to fight Chubodo, to compete for food on his turf, and Chubodo would be damned if he treated me well. I just didn't expect him to go so far as to put my office in the utility room. At first, when I was down there, he wouldn't let me tour the premises. I knew exactly what he was thinking. He was announcing to me that this was his territory, and that I, an outsider, had no say in the matter. As for me trying to take over and take control, it was just wishful thinking. I walked over to my desk, sat down in my chair, and listened to the creaking sound coming from below. Zhubo was doing it on purpose, his goal being to make me know the difficulty of the task and quickly get the hell out of there. He was telling me that I simply couldn't compete with him. I took out my cigarettes and lit one. Zhubo wanted to push me out, but that was impossible. I had worked hard to get this opportunity, and if I just slunk away, I would curse myself as a loser. And if I couldn't even stay here, I would have no face to ask Zhu Yeqing for anything. So I can only stay, not only stay, but also squeeze Zhubo out, and then completely take control of this place in my own hands. Zhubo, since you like to play, then I'll play with you. I spat out a puff of smoke and sneered. This place used to be a real bar, but after Zhubo's development, there are now more than a dozen private rooms on the 2nd floor, which is actually almost like a karaoke bar. I sat in my office until dark, and apart from myself, not even a dog came to my door. Zhubo was deliberately isolating me. He must have given the order for no one to approach me. Seeing that it was completely dark and it was time for the nightclub to start filling up, I walked down to the third floor and took a look around the venue. It was already starting to fill up with guests. The booths on the first floor were full of people, and even the second floor boxes had a few waves of guests. The hostesses and waitresses in the club were all busy. After I had taken a look around, no one paid any attention to me. I wasn't angry. Firstly, I had only just arrived that day, and none of these people knew me. Secondly, they were ignoring me, so there was definitely Jubo's blessing. What do you want? Let go of me. Let go of me. I was wandering around the second floor, about to go back to my own deserted office on the third floor, when a girl shouted loudly in front of the door to a private room. I looked over and saw a bald man in the doorway of the private room, pulling a girl in a short skirt. The bald man was obviously drunk, and with a little drunkenness, he grabbed the girl's arm. Damn, what are you pretending? You said you wouldn't go on stage, so I'll just do you here, and it's not like I'm going on stage. As soon as the bald man's words came out, there was a burst of laughter from inside the private room. Chapter 27, Establishing Authority. Brother Cohen, this is a formal occasion, and the girls don't want to go out, you can't do this. At this time, a waiter walked out of the crowd and bowed to Brother Cohen. Fuck you, she's lucky to be my girl, what the fuck are you? Bald obviously had drunk too much, and was obviously used to being arrogant. He slapped the waiter directly in the face, knocking him back a few steps. If you dare to bullshit me, I'll waste you. Baldy grabbed the girl by the hair and started to walk towards the private room. The girl screamed, Lu Liang, save me, go find Brother Bo. I could tell that the waitress and the waiter who had just been beaten were in a relationship, which is why the boy stood up for her. The girl told him to go find Brother Bo, of course she meant Jubo. However, the boy who had been slapped just gave a bitter smile, with a hint of determination in his eyes. I went to find him, but Brother Bo didn't stand up for us. He shouted at Baldy Cohen, I'm going to fight you to the death. He said this and rushed over, looking as if he was ready to die. Ouch, you son of a bitch, I think you really want to die. Baldy Cohen, who was standing at the door, grabbed the girl's hair and sneered. Before the boy could get anywhere near him, two young thugs rushed out of the room and knocked the waiter to the ground with a few punches and kicks. Drag him in here, I want to fuck his girlfriend in front of him. Bald Cohen ordered his men with a sneer, dragging the girl behind him as he walked into the box. There were quite a few waiters from the venue standing in the corridor, but none of them dared to go up and help. It seems that Bald Cohen had a pretty good reputation. I watched the scene in front of me without saying a word, walked directly to the next room, grabbed a bottle of beer and rushed out. I decided to take action and teach Bald Cohen a lesson. I'm not an impulsive person. If I saw this kind of scene somewhere else, I would probably just turn around and walk away. But it's different here, because this is my territory. That bald guy is causing trouble on my turf, and I have to make him pay. There's another reason. I just started working here today, and no one here knows me. If I can save these two today, it will also help me establish myself in the workplace. At the very least, it will show everyone that I'm not a coward. Although it's not easy to deal with what happened after I beat up Baldy Cohen, I have no choice but to take the risk. Besides, I'm also gambling. If that bald guy really wants to take revenge on me in the future, I don't believe Zhu Yeqing will just stand by and do nothing. I took the bottle and rushed straight to the door. At this time, Baldy Cohen was dragging the girl towards the private room. I patted him on the shoulder. Baldy Cohen turned around and looked at me with a puzzled expression. Baldy Cohen, right? Today, I'll teach you a lesson for your parents. Baldy Cohen's eyes widened, and before he could react, I raised the bottle in my hand and smashed it down on his head. There was a loud, clear sound, and the bottle exploded directly on his bald head, sending shards of glass flying in all directions. A cut was made on Baldy Cohen's smooth, bald head, and blood immediately flowed out, sliding down his head and onto his face. Everyone froze at this, even Guangto Cohen. He covered his head and froze for a long time before letting out a strange scream, pointing at me and yelling, "Where the hell did you come from, little brat, how dare you hit me?" Everyone reacted to this. The girl who had been grabbed by him at first shivered and hid herself on the side, while the two thugs let go of the waiter and rushed towards me with anger on their faces. I thought I was pretty good at martial arts. If I had more space, I could take on 3 guys at once. I could probably run away even if I couldn't win. I was the sprinting champion at school. But I couldn't run away in this situation. I had to keep the peace. If I ran away after a fight, I'd have wasted my time. I glanced at Baldy Cohen and sneered. He was obviously stunned by the bottle I had smashed over his head, and all he could do was yell, forgetting to stay away from me. To capture a thief, you must first capture the king. As long as you control him, you will also control the situation. I took the half-empty beer bottle and held it directly at his neck. Damn it, if you don't want him to die, stop right now. I placed the half-empty beer bottle on Bald Cohen's neck and turned around to shout at his two henchmen. Bald Cohen was also a coward, and he almost peed himself when he saw the bottle in my hand. Don't come over, don't come over. Guanto Cohen quickly shouted a few words to his two subordinates. The two subordinates stopped and looked at me with a look of vigilance. Brother, who are you? Haven't you heard of my name, Guanto Cohen? Holding a bottle of wine at his neck, Guanto Cohen didn't dare to move, but still asked me with a forced calmness. Who am I? My name is Chun Chang'an. I am now the manager of this place, so this is my territory. How dare you cause trouble in my territory? Aren't you afraid of death? I looked at Guanto Cohen coldly and extended my other hand, gently slapping him twice in the face. I know that dealing with these scumbags is about acting tougher than they are. If you show any weakness, these guys will be even more arrogant. If you act tougher than they are, they'll be as obedient as quails. I stared at Guanto Cohen with murder in my eyes, and the half-empty bottle in my hand lightly grazed his neck. The broken glass cut into his skin, and blood immediately began to flow. I was telling Guanto Cohen not to move, or I would really dare to waste him. Sure enough, cold sweat immediately ran down Guanto Cohen's head, and I don't know if it was from fear or the pain. You are the manager here, isn't this Yubo's territory? Guanto Cohen asked me with a trembling voice, looking puzzled. I smiled, glanced at the waiters around me, nodded to them, as if to say hello, and forgot to tell everyone that I had just started today, that it was Mr. Zhu who had arranged it, and that I would be the manager here in the future. What? Which Mr. Zhu? The bald guy's pupils contracted a little, and he asked me carefully. Which Mr. Zhu do you mean? Of course it's Mr. Zhu Yecheng. I deliberately spoke a little louder to make sure everyone there could hear. Sure enough, as soon as I spoke, the waiters and princesses gathered in the room began to whisper and discuss something. You are General Manager Zhu's man? My words obviously intimidated Baldy Cohen, causing him to look at me with a little awe in his eyes. In Hangzhou, the name of the poisonous widow Zhu Yecheng is really too big and legendary. Scoundrels like Baldy Cohen would never dare offend her. Who I'm with is none of your business, but I hope that you won't come to my place and cause trouble again in the future, or I'll beat you up every time I see you. As I spoke, I lightly slapped Guanto Cohen's cheek. In terms of momentum, I completely crushed him. Zhu Yecheng's reputation was so great that I had to completely overwhelm him when I used it. I remember, I will never cause trouble again. Guanto Cohen gritted his teeth and bowed his head in apology. Your attitude makes me very satisfied. I smiled, threw away the bottle in my hand, and said, get out. Go Tukun didn't dare to stay, and immediately led his two subordinates and walked out in disgrace. Remember, go to the front desk and settle today's bill. I said behind him. Go Tukun paused for a moment, didn't say anything, and just hurriedly walked downstairs. Okay, everyone disperse, go back to what you were doing. I waved my hand and said to the people around me. I knew I had just performed well, and I was even a little handsome. At least I had already intimidated everyone. The onlookers dispersed, leaving only the girl and the waiter who had been beaten. The two of them glanced at me and came over fearfully. Are you really the new manager, Chen? The boy asked me carefully. I nodded and took a closer look at him. His face was covered in bruises, and the two underlings of Guanto Cohen had just hit him pretty hard. Damn, I forgot to ask them to pay for the medical expenses. I regretted it a little. Of course. I nodded. Thank you, Mr. Chen. My name is Lu Liang, and this is my girlfriend, Xiao, he said while pulling the girl. The two of them bowed to me. Lu Liang said excitedly, Mr. Chen, you saved us today. From now on, I, Lu Liang, will be your man. If you have anything in the future, just let me know. Lu Liang and Xiao were full of gratitude, and their tone was sincere. I looked at the two of them and then laughed. Their gratitude was sincere, so I said that from now on, in this place, I would have my own people. Chapter 28, Difficult Finances. Lu Liang took his girlfriend, Xiao, and thanked me profusely. I waved them off and let them get back to work, and I went back to the office alone. Although the office had a strong musty smell, I didn't care anymore. I was very satisfied with my performance just now. Not only did I just get rid of the troublemaker Guanto Koan, I also established my authority in the workplace and won the loyalty of Lu Liang. He is an employee of this place and is certainly familiar with the situation here, so it should be easy to get information from him. What I didn't know was that when Guanto Koan, who had been smashed by me and was bleeding profusely, went to the checkout, Jubo also appeared at the bar. Oh dear, Koan Go, what happened to you? Seeing bald-headed Koan covered in blood, Jubo pretended to be surprised and hurried over to him. Damn it, Jubo, I've fallen for you today. I admit defeat, I'll never come here again. Bald-headed Koan looked at Jubo, and although he still looked arrogant, his tone was not as arrogant as before. Brother Koan, what are you talking about? I still owe you for taking care of my place, how can you not come? Jubo said flattery. I dare not come, I'm afraid of being beaten again. Bald Koan said irritably. What? Koan, you were beaten? Who would dare to beat Koan in my place? Who is it? They must be tired of living. Jubo pretended to be angry. Alright, Jubo, what are you pretending for? You know it. Bald Koan waved his hand in annoyance. Brother Koan, I really don't know, what's going on? Jubo looked puzzled. You really don't know? I was beaten by your new manager, what's his name? Chan Chang'an. One of the underlings immediately spoke up. Yes, it was that Chen Chang'an brat who beat me up. He said he was one of Zhu's people, so beating me up was pointless. I can't afford to provoke him. Bald Koan covered his head and gasped. So it was him? Shubo's eyes twinkled with a look of smug satisfaction as he glanced at Guanto Koan, then whispered, Brother Koan, you don't need to be afraid of him. That guy is bluffing, he's got nothing to do with my cousin. What do you mean? Didn't Mr. Zhu make him the manager here? He also said he was one of Mr. Zhu's men. Guanto Koan looked puzzled. He was bluffing you. That guy has no foundation at all. He is just here to hold an empty title. I am actually in charge. This is my Zhu family's business. How could my cousin let an outsider take care of it? Zhu Yun said coldly. What? You mean that son of a bitch was bluffing me just now? Upon hearing Zhu Bo's words, Guanto Koan immediately became angry and was about to tell his subordinates to go upstairs. Don't worry, don't worry. Brother Koan, you can't touch him today. Zhu Bo quickly stopped the several men. Damn it, he screwed me over, and I won't let him get away with it today. Guanto Koan was furious. Brother Koan, you have to calm down. No matter what he says, he was arranged to come in by my cousin. This is my place, so you can't touch him here, or it won't look good. Zhu Yun quickly said. So we're just going to let him go? Guanto Koan was a little reluctant. Humph, he offended you, of course you can't just let him go, but you can't do it here, why don't we do it tomorrow? Shubo said this while leaning into Guanto Koan's ear, and the two of them let out a sinister sneer. Inside the office, I had just finished smoking a cigarette when there was a knock on the door. Come in. I said indifferently. The door was pushed open and Lu Liang cautiously walked in, closing the door behind him. I glanced at him and saw that the wound on his face had already been treated. Does it still hurt? I asked him. Thanks for your concern, Manager Chen, it doesn't hurt anymore. Lu Liang quickly said. Don't call me manager in the future. I should be a few years older than you, so just call me Brother Chen. As I spoke, I gestured to the sofa and motioned for him to sit down. Lu Liang surveyed my office a few times, then looked at the sofa, and with a somewhat strange expression, sat down. I looked at him and smiled. Ah, he is a smart person, he knows what I need most right now, so he came to see me so quickly. I like dealing with smart people, at least it is not too difficult to communicate with them. What do you want? I asked with a smile. Brother Chen, you have to be careful. Lu Liang hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth and said to me. Oh, be careful? What should I be careful of? I asked nonchalantly. Today, before you came, Jubo already let everyone know not to talk to you, and he said that within 3 days, you would definitely be out of here. Lu Liang shrunk his neck and said to me. Upon hearing his words, I sneered. It seems that this guy Jubo really values this place, and if there are no unexpected circumstances, he will never let go. On the bus, Li Xiaohua already told me that this guy Jubo is ignorant and has no other way to make money besides this venue. Now that I'm here, I'm cutting off his source of income. Cutting off someone's source of income is like killing their parents, so he will definitely not let me go. Okay, I understand. I smiled and nodded to Lu Liang. Brother Chen, aren't you afraid? Lu Liang looked at me in disbelief. Since I dare to come here, I'm not afraid of Zhubo. I smiled and said. Although I don't have a way to deal with Zhubo right now, I must be confident in front of others and must not show weakness. But I'm still quite confident. After all, Zhu Yeqing arranged for me to be here, and even if Zhubo is arrogant, he dares not have a direct conflict with me here. Tell me about the situation in this place. I said to Lu Liang. Lu Liang nodded and told me everything he knew. I didn't really care about anything else, but I focused on asking about the finances of the club. Zhubo has been making false accounts for Zhu Yeqing for so many years, so he must use his own people for the finances. Sure enough, as I expected, the person in charge of the finances here is Zhubo's sister-in-law. The situation between Zhubo and I is actually somewhat similar. He dares not touch me openly, because I was arranged here by Zhu Yeqing. And I can't touch him either, after all, he is a Zhu family member, and no matter what, he is Zhu Yeqing's cousin. If I touch him in public, it would be like slapping Zhu Yeqing in the face. What's more, I don't have the strength to completely turn against him right now, so the best way to get rid of him is to get his account book, so that Zhu Yeqing can fire Zhubo and it will be plausible in public. But now that the finance manager is his sister-in-law, it is almost impossible for me to get the account book. Damn, what a pain. Chapter 29, You Really Have C. I didn't chat with Lu Liang for long. After all, he was a waiter and had work to do, so it was enough for me to get a brief overview of the situation in the casino from him. He sat for a while and then left. I sat alone in the office and smoked 2 cigarettes without coming up with a plan to deal with Zhubo. The situation between him and me is basically one of either him leaving or me leaving. What is the true hatred between people? It is certainly a conflict of interests. This place has always been Zhubo's territory, but now I have come and am going to take away his interests, so of course Zhubo will not sit idly by. As for me, I have been sidelined. Although I am the nominal manager, apart from that, this place has nothing to do with me. Of course I will not allow this situation to continue, so there will definitely be a conflict between Zhubo and me, either he goes or I am out. But it seems that it will be difficult for me to get rid of him. I stayed until after 3 a.m., when the club closed, and left. After all, I am the manager of this place in name, and this is my club. Even if I have no real power, I have to hold on for the sake of appearances. At a little after 6 p.m., Hani sent me a message asking if I was home, and if I was, she would come over for a drink. I told her that I was very busy today and would probably be late, so she should not wait up for me. When the message was sent, I felt a little strange. No matter how you look at it, the tone of the message sounded like a husband talking to his wife. Hani didn't seem to notice anything wrong, though. She just replied with 2 words, okay, followed by a smiley face. It was almost 4 a.m. when I got home. I took a quick shower and went straight to bed, where I slept soundly. I didn't wake up until noon the next day. I got up, opened my phone, and there was a message from Hani, asking if I was going to be back so late again tonight. I gave a wry smile. With that kind of place, I'm afraid I'll be living a life of black and white every day from now on. I sent a message to Hani, telling her that I expected my daily routine to be like this from now on. It took her a while to send a message back, asking me to rest and not work too hard. I was a little moved, and sent a thank you. Hani stopped talking. I got up, washed up a little, and was about to go downstairs to get something to eat when my phone rang. Someone had called me for a video call. I picked up the phone and saw that it was a message from Mu Shaowan. This made me feel like something bad had happened. She had been gone for 2 days, and I had been so busy that I had not had time to take care of the flowers for her. I didn't know what was going on. It had only been 2 days since she had last watered them, but they should still be alive, right? I quickly answered the video call, and Mu Shaowan's pretty face, with just a little makeup, appeared on the screen. You pervert, what are you doing? Mu Shaowan said, looking at me in the video. Oh, I just got up and was going to go downstairs for something to eat. I said. What time did you get up? Mu Shaowan rolled her eyes a little and continued, did you go fooling around again last night? I smiled wryly and said, I'm such a serious person, where would I fool around? Humph, what's with the act, you're such a wolf. Mu Shaowan said, deliberately lowering her voice, pressing her face against the phone and asking me mysteriously, that classmate of yours is very pretty, and she lives next door to you. Have you taken her in the last couple of days? What are you talking about? I'm not that kind of person. Faced with the somewhat quirky Mu Xiaowan, I could only smile bitterly. Humph, loser, we've been classmates for a long time, and she lives next door to you. People can sleep together just by attending a class reunion, and you're here practicing your concentration. Mu Xiaowan mocked me. Okay, enough of that. What do you want? I have a headache. Of course I have something to do. You haven't forgotten what I told you before I left, have you? If my flowers die, I'll fix you when I get back. Mu Xiaowan said this while raising her fist and shaking it in front of me, looking fierce. I laughed nervously and quickly said, how dare I forget? I water them every day. Don't worry, I'll definitely not let them die. Oomph, you still have some heart. Mu Xiaowan snorted. I secretly wiped away a bead of sweat, praying in my heart that nothing would happen to her flowers. As a reward for your good intentions, I'll show you something beautiful today. Mu Xiaowan said, as if she had placed her phone somewhere, and then she quickly ran to the back until the whole person appeared in the camera. It was only at this time that I could see clearly that Mu Xiaowan was by a swimming pool, and she was now wearing a pink bikini. The pale skin of the young girl and the pink of the swimsuit mixed together to create an ambiguous color with a fatal allure. This color is most fatal to mature men, and I am a man with normal physical and mental health, so it is also fatal to me. It's like an invisible pair of hands that are constantly tickling your heartstrings. I watched Mu Xiaowan in the video and felt my eyes light up. This girl is really beautiful. At this time, Mu Xiaowan in the video had already walked back and picked up her phone, except that the camera, whether intentionally or unintentionally, was actually pointed at her chest. What do you think, you pervert, am I pretty? Mu Xiaowan asked as she walked. I stared at the screen. Mu Xiaowan was wearing a swimsuit, and the camera was pointed at her chest. As she walked, her breasts jiggled with every step, creating a powerful visual impact. Why are you silent? Mu Xiaowan asked me, puzzled. I realized my mistake. You're not a B, you're a C. I stared at the screen and blurted out these words. In front of the camera was Mu Xiaowan's angry face. She stared at the screen and said angrily, Shen Chang'an, you're a pervert, a scoundrel. After Mu Xiaowan finished speaking, she hung up the video call directly, without giving me a chance to explain. Don't blame me, you're the one who kept the camera there. I quickly sent her a message. Get lost. Mu Xiaowan only replied with one word, accompanied by an angry expression. I gave a bitter smile and thought to myself, what a thing to do. You were the one who let me see it by accident, and then you get mad at me. Women are really unreasonable. But then again, Mu Xiaowan does have a good figure. I was wrong before, but now that she's wearing a bikini, I can see even more clearly that she doesn't lie when she says she has a real C-cup. Chapter 30, Lend a Knife to Kill. I quickly found Mu Xiaowan's room card and opened the door to enter her room. Fortunately, the pots of flowers on the balcony showed no signs of wilting. I poured water over them and then took a taxi to Xiaxia. When I walked into the venue, several waiters were already busy. They were taken aback when they saw me come in, but quickly smiled and greeted me, calling me Manager Chen. I nodded, signifying for them to continue with their work, and walked towards the stairs. My actions yesterday were very useful. At least I have established my authority, so that they dare not disrespect me. In fact, people are sometimes so strange, and they all have a mentality of admiring the strong. The reason why they ignored me yesterday was entirely because Jubo had let it be known that I would not be here for long, and they felt that I could not defeat Jubo, so they paid me little mind. But yesterday I took action and showed them how ruthless I could be, so that they understood that even if I couldn't take care of Jubo, I could easily take care of them. I walked over to the office on Sanlu Road, where a man was sitting quietly. During that time, Lu Liang came in once, chatted with me for a while, and then went out to get busy. I felt a bit helpless. Although I had established my authority in the workplace, it didn't have any substantial effect. How to get the account book and force Jubo to leave is still a mystery to me now. Damn it, I'll sing whatever song befits the situation. Since I'm here, I won't let anyone get rid of me so easily. I slammed the table and cursed. Hey, Chenggu, what are you thinking about? Just then, the door was pushed open and Jubo, with yellow hair and a rascal's appearance, walked in. Why are you here? Aren't you busy down there? Although I hated him to the core, I still kept a smile on my face and said to him. Not really. There aren't many customers today. Jubo waved his hand with a smile. So you're coming? I asked him tentatively. Didn't you just get here, Chenggu? It was too rushed yesterday to give you a welcome, and there aren't many customers today. Let's go out and practice a stall as a welcome to you, Chenggu. Shubo said with a smile. I looked at him. I had parachuted in here to take his job. This guy couldn't be that nice. I wondered what kind of mischief he was up to. But if he invited me, I had to go. If I didn't go, I'd be admitting defeat, and I wouldn't be able to face the others. Thanks, brother. I'm not doing anything right now. I smiled. Good, there's a barbecue not far from here called May. Shubo walked out while talking, and I picked up my jacket and followed behind him. When we got downstairs, Shubo greeted a few people. There was a young man with yellow hair like him, and I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, but he also called Lu Liang and his girlfriend Xiaro. Lu Liang and Xiaro stood behind them, not daring to speak, just looking at me carefully with a few worried looks in their eyes. I smiled and nodded at him, telling him not to be afraid. The other one, Huangma Lu Liang, told me that he was the head waiter in this place, named Zhao Jin, and was Shubo's #1 lackey. We walked out of the venue, and Shubo told Zhao to go get the car. In a while, a 7-seat commercial vehicle stopped at the door, and we got in. In the car, Lu Liang kept giving me signals. I understood what he meant. He was telling me that today was a banquet with a hidden agenda, and that I must be careful. I nodded at him to show that I knew what was going on. Before long, we arrived at a barbecue stall. Shubo greeted the waiter, asked for the menu, and pushed it to me, saying that it was on him today, so I just had to watch out for myself. Of course I didn't hold back, ordering a few of my favorites and whatever else was expensive. Here's to you, Chenggu, I'll toast you. From now on, you're the boss in our place, and we'll all rely on you. The dishes had just been served when Shubo raised his glass and said to me with a smile. I was a little surprised and didn't know what the guy was up to. It's nothing, we'll all get rich together in the future. I said, lifting my glass and taking a drink. Shubo also finished the wine in his glass, glanced at Lu Liang and Xiaro, and said with a smile, I heard yesterday that Brother Chen took action against Baldy Kuan. That guy is a well-known thug in our area, and Brother Chen is so awesome. If you work in the club, you're one of us. I don't care who he is, bullying one of our own is not allowed. I said with a smile. Brother Chen is right, he's right. Shubo nodded repeatedly, but the smile carried a hint of sinister. Damn it, it was that son of a bitch who beat me up yesterday. Just then, a group of people walked towards the stall, and in no time at all, they surrounded us. There were more than 10 of them, all armed with steel pipes. A few of them were shirtless, showing off their tattoos. They looked like the small-time hoodlums. Seeing bald-headed Kuan, I sneered inwardly, knowing that this was a trap dug for me by Shubo. I beat up bald-headed Kuan, and today bald-headed Kuan came to take revenge on me. Even if I get beaten to death, this has nothing to do with him. This brat Shubo is trying to kill me with a borrowed knife today. Brother Kuan, why did you come? Today I'm treating, so do me a favor, Brother Kuan. Seeing bald-headed Kuan, Shubo immediately stood up and smiled, offering him a cigarette. Get the hell out of here. There's a reason for everything. I'm here to pick a fight with him, so anyone not involved should get out of the way. If you don't go, I'll beat you up too. Go Guang Kuan looked coldly at Shubo and snubbed his cigarette. Shubo pretended to look at me and said, Brother Chen, I can't help you with this today. Get the hell out of here. Go Guang Kuan smashed a steel pipe onto the table. Shubo pretended to be scared, pulled his junior Zhao Jin's hand and quickly slipped away. I glanced at Lu Liang. Although he was scared and pale, he didn't run away, but just protected his girlfriend Xiaro behind him. You can go, I said to Lu Liang. He shook his head and said, this trouble is because you stood up for us, Brother Chen. I won't leave today. This is a good friend. I made a comment in my heart about Lu Liang. Bald Kuan, you dared to provoke me. Have you thought about the consequences? I looked at Bald Kuan and said coldly. Although I was a little guilty now, I knew that I couldn't lose my aura. Regret your mother, do you think I don't know your background? Beat him up and cripple him for me. Bald Kuan shouted, and a dozen of his subordinates rushed at us with their weapons. Fuck you. I knew that I couldn't hide today, so I lifted the table and smashed it at Bald Kuan.